Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 246. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I'm the sensei of whatnot, the Duke of spreading comic love wherever I go. Call me the king of kind of deal due to a new vocal twist. Month after month, my vocal issues can't be missed. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, Duke of and the king of kind of deal, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
We'll actually talk a little bit more about that in our closing at the end of the episode, because it's more fitting for that. We're also going to announce at the end of the episode our 5-year anniversary contest. This month right now, marks the end of 5 full years of Raging Bullets. It'll be March 23rd. We're going to be at the C2E2 convention, and we're going to be celebrating there. So, this is a great opportunity for you to come and see us at the Podcast Arena. That's March 18th, 19th, and 20th. There'll be representation from our show at the table all weekend long, so definitely consider coming to see us at the C2E2 convention. Jim, 5 full years of doing this.
I know. It makes me want to celebrate at C2E2. Celebrate at C2E2.
Wow. C2E2.com for more details, though. And the guest list is constantly being updated. And there's going to be a podcasting panel on Friday night as well. So if you have a chance to come over and see the panel, it's going to be really great. C2E2 convention. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, you can pick up Gotham City Sirens number 23. It's one of the books we're talking about in this episode. Break out at Arkham with Harley Quinn in danger. Can Catwoman and Poison Ivy put aside their dangerous history and work together to save Harley Quinn? Guest starring the Joker, Clayface, and Jeremiah Arkham. And this is 32 pages, regularly $2.99, only $1.79 at DCBService.com. Great chance to pick up a discount on a book that we haven't had a chance to talk about in a while that I've really been enjoying. Over at InStockTrades.com, you can pick up the Gotham City Sirens Song of the Sirens hardcover. If you haven't been reading this, these hardcovers are a cool way to pick up the series. This collects issues 8 to 14 of the hit series. Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and Harley Quinn are tired of playing by other people's rules, regardless of which side of the law they're on. As their dangerous alliance with the Riddler continues, the Sirens will do anything to learn which mysterious villain is targeting them for death. It's 168 pages, regularly $19.99, 38% off, only $12.39. It's a great way to pick up this series at a discount if you haven't been reading it and get a great arc in that process as well. That's InStockTrades.com. Remember, with InStockTrades.com, orders of over $50 give you free shipping. Great way to pick up some books at some great discounts. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing on the show. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
We're also going to be talking the last 2 episodes of Smallville. This is going to be heading into a small few weeks off until April. But I thought the events on the most recent shows, we need to talk about casually, at least on the podcast. So we're going to probably kick off with that.
Through the magic alchemy of nature's most awesome sources of energy, Ray Palmer, atomic physicist, becomes the atom.
Jim, let's talk some Smallville. I know you this morning just watched the most recent episodes, the last 2 of them, and I was like, afterwards, especially with the reveals, Connor Kent on Smallville.
Woohoo! That was outstanding, and I was just sitting there as soon as he mentioned Connor, I'm like, yes, I'm doing high fives to myself and just really freaking out, having a ball with it, and I loved seeing again just that the young kid learning from, Superman. There was some cool developments with him, and I love the way they did the dark turn, because we had that in the comic where where Lex took over Connor's mind, and he did that whole, the evil version of him, let out the Luthor in him. Here we get a Smallvilleized version of it. A great, again, tying back, pulling little stuff right back from the comics, but still keeping it very much Smallville universe.
Like you said, it's a Smallvilleized version of it, but it's still stuck very true to how it worked out in the comics with Lex. And how you knew afterwards that when that ring was shattered, that we were going to get the kid back. Yeah. Here's the funny part now. I'm pretty convinced that this kid's going to be independent of Lex Luthor returning at the end. Whereas before this episode kicked off, I was pretty much so assuming this kid was going to grow up to be Michael Rosenbaum in the 2-hour finale. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, I'm complete agreement with you. He is 100% separate from Michael Rosenbaum's return. That's going to be something completely else, and that's, again, another unknown factor. How is Lex going to return? Because my guess is Lex is going to somehow, because he's Lex, survived everything that's been thrown at him, or maybe he's another clone somewhere else, or whatnot.
Or maybe Darkseid is bringing him back.
Maybe Darkseid's bringing him back. Yeah, there's a lot of just unanswered questions, and that's the thing that I'm so glad that, in one hand, I was ecstatic because of Connor, because I think that's just a great character, and I'm so happy to see the role that Clark played with him, kind of, that training, the mentor type of deal. I thought that was just some really cool moments between the two of them, especially how he kept giving nods back to his parents, Now we have that completely separate. We have, again, another mystery. And I love it when the show keeps me guessing, keeps me bobbing and weaving.
I'm personally guessing that Lex's dad, Lionel, is making a deal with Darkseid. Darkseid is going to bring back Lex. I don't think it's a coincidence they're standing over his son's grave. I think we're going to actually get the real Lex back. It's not going to be a clone. It's going to be the real Lex brought back due to a deal Lionel makes with Darkseid. And, is it that Lionel's agreeing to be the host of Darkseid, agreeing to let his son be the host of Darkseid? I don't know. I'm going to be curious to see where this is going to go. I was pretty much so assuming the Darkseid story was completely done. Now we're seeing exactly what I was wondering all along. How are these two stories ever going to converge? Because we don't have many episodes left. So now we're seeing them converge. We're seeing that this is an opportunity, especially with a lot of Darkseid's minions being taken down. What is the next game for Darkseid? We haven't really seen a battle between Superman and Darkseid. How is Lex going to react to Darkseid is going to be my interesting question when all that comes about.
My guess is it's going to be Lionel is going to become the host for Darkseid. And the part of the deal will be to bring back Lex. And when Lex comes back, I actually see Lex fighting Darkseid because of the whole, even if it is his father, especially if it's his father, he's got dad issues, but I see him, Lex has always been humans first. So I can see him fighting against this alien invasion and fighting against this unknown. I'm hoping that Lex won't remember anything when he comes back. That he won't remember Clark's secret. He won't remember any of that stuff. Because I like, Lex not knowing the secret.
Yeah, that was one thing that I would like to see. I guess is why I was so stuck on this clone becoming Lex. I was like, well, with the kid losing his memory, this now provides the ultimate opportunity for him to grow up to be the Lex Luthor we know. Because of the fact that he's now forgotten the secret. So the twist of him becoming Connor, I guess, was something that they really did a good job. I mean, some of our listeners had mentioned this on Facebook and through emails that they thought that this was the way it was going to go, that it was going to become Connor. And then we saw images, actually, of him wearing the Connor T-shirt, which is pretty much a dead giveaway. Okay, hey, we got it. But I'm saying prior to that, when I was watching the episodes, they really did a good job of building that whole story arc where he doesn't remember. Because that made me think, I'm like, okay, this is going to be Lex. He's going to grow into be Lex. I love that they did this because the kid's immediately likable. Enrolling him in Smallville High, I think, is very cool. Do you think we're going to see more of the kid as the storyline goes on, or is he going to be kind of taking a little bit of a backseat with Smallville High now? What do you think is going to happen?
See, I am worried about him taking the backseat. Just because there's so much they have to do, there's so much they have to cover, that he may not be in the forefront of stories anymore because they got to continue on the message, continue on the Darkseid tale, continue on everything that's going on with Lois and Clark, with the wedding and whatnot, just the various themes they have to wrap up to the end of series. So I see him taking a back seat, but it's, again, one of those things in me where I'm like thinking they could turn this... I'm, of course, dreaming here, and I'm going to just throw that out that I'm dreaming, but I would love to see a spin-off be Connor Kent, be a Superboy series. But I don't think that'll ever happen just because I think Smallville's done at the end of this season, and I got to accept the fact that I have to say goodbye to Smallville, even though I don't want to, because I had the same issues with Next Generation. I had to say goodbye to Next Generation, and that was hard for me because I really enjoyed that series, and it was another long running series that I was like, I don't want it to end, So I got to deal with that. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, hey, they could do a spin-off and they could continue on the story.
Did you read novels from Next Generation? Because I did. I mean, this is a great example. Okay, see, in a similar vein for me, when the series ended, it continued. There were novels that continued on and told new Next Generation stories. I really liked that. One of the authors was great, comic book writer Peter David. I really love his Star Trek novels, and he wrote a number of them. This would be a great example of a series that I would love to see spin into novels, post the series, continuing on the story, or doing spin-off novels, or comics. We talked about that on the last couple episodes, how it'd be great to see a Buffy, style, like Dark Horse is doing, where there's a season 11 of Smallville done in the comic book format. Make it a bi-weekly series, or something like that, like what they're doing with the DC Universe Online game right now. And it would be right in time for when that DC Universe Online comic series is wrapping up. Although I'm enjoying that so much, I'd love to see more of a game tie-in, like afterwards, another one.
Yeah.
But I think this is a great avenue to grab an audience. Like when this ends, get some of the show writers to get involved with doing a Smallville comic. I would love more. And I think the comic book medium, you touched on it, now we can bring in some characters that we never could before, that the series has finally hinted at. When it hinted at, Chloe talked about Diana and Clark in the Zatanna episode. I mean, not Diana and Bruce in the Zatanna episode. At the end, when she was doing that kind of tearful goodbye, she was telling Clark that, there's other people out there, like this Amazonian princess and this playboy, and I'm like, right away, Bruce and Diana, the two characters that I think would be a Smallville dream for us to see, who we're obviously not going to see on the show. I would love to see them then in a comic book spinoff, have an opportunity to meet.
Now, here's the thing. Because as soon as she had that scene you're talking about, and I immediately thought the same thing you did, but she didn't say Playboy. She said a billionaire with these amazing toys.
Okay.
She never said Playboy. I'm thinking, what if that is a Blue Beetle? Because there's always been the talk that there's going to be a Blue and Gold episode.
I don't take that as being Blue Beetle at all. I think that was meant to be Wonder Woman and Batman. I didn't take it that way at all. First of all, I agree with you that there's going to be I think that's almost a lock. Not almost a lock. I thought that's the one that Jeff Johns is writing.
Yeah.
So that's a for sure episode. I don't think that would be kind of silly. Why would she be referring to Wonder Woman and Blue Beetle? It seems like a comment that they were trying to have a way to acknowledge the Trinity without having the Trinity on the show. So I didn't see that at all as being a tie to Blue Beetle.
And to be honest, and when I first heard it, I immediately thought Batman. I thought, the Trinity, Bruce and Diana. But as, just being me, you start looking beyond the words and replaying it and being, neurotic like I am. I was like, what if they're talking that? Hey, that'd be a neat swerve. Have everyone thinking one thing and come in with another?
Yeah, and I wouldn't have any issue with that. I guess I don't see the point. Because I thought the whole point of that sequence was to give us that geeky... They just talked about Batman and Wonder Woman on Smallville. So, I mean, to have us find out later she was actually talking about Blue Beetle, that seems kind of underwhelming. And that's not a knock on Blue Beetle. I mean, the whole point of that moment was to nod to the Trinity. I think that Blue Beetle Booster Gold episode is going to be cool on its own. You don't need to connect it.
Yeah.
Plus, I see Blue Beetle... I don't necessarily see it. Do you see it being Ted Kord or Jaime?
Well, I was thinking Jaime.
I do too.
I think the armor would be cool to see. But just, again, as I say, just random thoughts that pop in my head. That was one that came, that went in.
Yeah.
Now, here's another question for you. With the wedding of Chloe and Ollie, because when she was talking to Clark, she said it was all just a joke, yada yada yada. Was she just telling that to calm Clark down and not get him to ask any questions? Because if she actually talked to the wedding chapel, she would have known that it wasn't her and Clark who got married. And then Ollie shows up with the other half of the marriage certificate, and it's the two of them married. Are they actually married?
Well, here's the catch, though. First of all, we're assuming a lot in the sense that How do we know how much this wedding... Because if the wedding chapel was saying that it was all bogus, it may have not gotten to that point of conversation where it actually talked about it, who the other person was. I don't know. I don't know at that point in time. I don't know that I necessarily consider Ollie and Chloe to be definitely married. I think what Ollie was showing her was there's something deeper between the two of us. Were you taking it that they're really married? Or was that his way of saying... we're together, kid. Let's go off together. I would have married. I would have married you in that sequence. I would marry you now. How did you take that? Because to me, I didn't take it as a guaranteed lock that they are actually truly married. Did you? And also, did you see that being the case before it actually was revealed? Because I did. I thought it was going to turn out to be Ollie.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking that, and I couldn't really, even if as drunk as Clark was on the magic wine, the magic champagne, I couldn't see them doing that. So I was leaning towards, Ollie. It was going to be Ollie, But I don't know. I think they're actually married. I'm thinking in my head that actually occurred and that actually happened, and they're just keeping it from everybody.
Well, okay. Now I'm going to go a different method with you on this one then. Was Chloe keeping it secret, assuming Ollie didn't know, as her way to kind of sneak out, hoping to make it easier on herself by not confronting him? Because she was really trying to sneak away, and I really liked how he noticed the warning signs again, and came out there and manned up and said, hey, I know you're planning to go off to Star City, going to my hometown. I don't think it's a coincidence you're going to my hometown. I think that you're going there because of our connection. Let's do this together. I liked that moment. I thought it was a really cool moment and ending for those two. Does this mean that we're not going to see Ollie in the show from here on out? How are you? Because he was in the credits in the beginning, but I don't know that, is he going to do a quick pop-in at the end? What do you think's going to happen with him?
Well, I'm hoping we still see him, and I'm hoping we still see Chloe, but I'm thinking the two of them are out for a little while until the big fight. The final episode, we got to have everybody back. We got to have, I want the full JLA. I want some JSA members there. I want everybody who's ever been on this show making a return. I think it would be you got to have the full cast. But I think we're going to have a couple episodes, without Ollie and without Chloe, because they're in Star City now. And I don't know. I think she was trying to hide it and try to keep it from Ollie, but as I say those words, I'm like, she couldn't have. There's no way technically you can keep something like that from somebody, So it's, again, I am leaning on the fact that it was all just not real, not valid, not binding. It was all a joke, but it was a joke between the two of them were doing it, and Chloe, either annulled it or got it canceled out, because it was done while they were drunk.
Here's the thing where I'm not entirely sure I agree with you anymore. I was with you all the way along through the season. I was in complete agreement with the concept that we're probably going to see as many people as possible in the 2-hour finale. With Michael Rosenbaum coming back, I'm wondering, what is the focus of that episode going to be? Because you're going to have 2 hours where you have the opportunity to really do something with Michael Rosenbaum and Superman. How much time are you going to distract from that with other characters? So in the sense that they might be back for cameos and quick appearances, I agree. I think we're going to see some... If Chloe and Ollie are back, I think we'll see some big moments with them. But I'm guessing a lot of the focus is going to be on Lex Luthor. It'd almost be a mistake not to, because we all want to see that. I want to see a lot done with him.
Oh, definitely agree. I think, when I'm saying everyone's going to be back, it's going to be appearances. It's going to be maybe even radio communication, maybe a little blip on the screen at Watchtower where you got, you got Arthur and, Mira saying, we got the North Seas covered. We got incoming, kind of deal. And flash over, Bart is, dealing over in Central City, pop up Cyborg, pop up, just everybody they can. And it may only be TV monitors, or it may only be a quick cameo spot, but the Metropolis fight, I think, is going to be, Clark in costume versus somebody. And whether it's that somebody's going to be Lex, whether it's going to be Darkseid, whether it's going to be a possessed Lex or a possessed Lionel, not sure exactly where it's going to go. But the main focus of that episode will be, will be Superman and will be, Clark Kent and will be Lex Luthor kind of deal. So the other characters will be there, but not there.
Are you now when you say costume, Clark in costume? Are you assuming he's going to be in the Superman suit or the Blur suit for that episode? Because I'm assuming the Blur suit. My personal feeling is I'm guessing the Superman suit at the very end. That's going to be our coup de grace at the end, so to speak. But the way you said suit, I guess I was assuming you're thinking, and I'm not saying I'm right. Are you thinking that he's going to be wearing the Superman costume in that episode?
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking we're going to see Superman costume in that episode, and we're going to see Clark flying.
What do you think's going to trigger that, though? I guess. See, to me, I look at the 2-hour finale, that big episode and that big battle, being the final thing that kind of pushes him to the next level, that pushes him to don the suit. That's the way I'm thinking it's going to go. How are you seeing it, though? And you might be 100% correct. How are you seeing it? 'Cause I'm curious on this.
I'm seeing it as the people will need something. They'll need hope. They'll need that person to follow. He'll need to, it's time to step out of the shadows. It's time to let people see me. It's time, that they know who I am. And that, it'll be that whole you'll see him go into the, the fortress, open up the case where the suit is, dun, 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 dun. They may not use the theme, but it'll be that kind of feeling where they need Superman. This looks like a job for Superman kind of moment where he needs to he'll put on the costume, he'll take the final steps, and he'll need to do this to face this great evil. The ultimate good versus the ultimate evil, in the match of the century kind of deal. And I'm noticing I'm saying that a lot more now. Sorry. Purely accidental as well, by the way. But it's going to be it's going to be that kind of fight and that kind of moment, and you will just need to have the suit. I think it's going to be a natural progression to yes, he was the Blur. Yes, the Blur is this great hero, but this is this is a superhero that will inspire hope in people. And hope is what you need when you're facing the darkness. When you're facing ultimate evil, you need hope that there is something good out there, that there is still, the light is still there, that it's not all gone. And you see this beacon of light coming in, standing up to this evil. I think that's the kind of moment they're going to go for in the last episode.
Yeah, that's interesting. I agree. I actually fully agree with that. I guess I don't necessarily think that means that he has to put on the suit. I think that those events that you're describing will be what leads him to see that he needs to be that person visually as well. Be a little bit more out in the open. That's where we're going to see him with the suit. I'm fine with either way, so I'm not saying it better be that he's wearing the Blur suit. My preference is with you in the sense that I would love to see him for 2 hours fighting in the Superman suit. I think that'd be great. But I'm personally thinking we're going to see him in the Blur outfit, and that it's going to end the other way. But I agree thematically where this is going to go. It has to go to this route where we see him at the end clearly defined as Superman. And I would love to see the series end with him being labeled Superman. I'd like to see Lois call him Superman for the first time.
Yes.
However that is.
The one to name him.
Yeah, the headline or whatever in the paper. I want to see that. That's something that is very important to me in this show, for it to head to that route.
Yeah, this has just been these last... And I was sitting there, it was funny, because when you and I talked, you said, you got to watch this, because once you're done watching this episode, you're going to want to talk about it. And I was just sitting there, I'm like, good, yay, yay! And I was like, okay, Sean really understands, He knows me well enough to know I'm going nuts here. I wanted to jump online right then and there and start talking about it, because that really, just the whole episode, with, just the development of Connor, when he comes back, and that ending was just so great when he's like, I rolled you in Smallville High, and he opens it up, you see Connor Kent. He's like, well, you needed a last name. Hope you don't mind. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. We need Ma here. We need Ma now. We need Martha to come back to Smallville. It's, be done with her term as senator and, kind of, hanging out at the house again. Because just... I don't know. I like seeing in the Superboy comic him interacting with Ma, and of course I always love to see a Crypto reference, because Crypto is actually really cool, real cool dog. So I'd like to see that maybe come around again somehow. And there's so much I want to see happen that I know it probably won't all happen, but I can hope.
Well, I don't want them to try and shove in things just for the sake of shoving it in. Like, why did this Connor Kent bit work? Well, it worked because it was so well developed leading up to that point. Like, it was like, oh my gosh, this is really where they're going with this. And you got this great build in this episode to this kid who had the red ring on that was taking really a focus of his duality, showing that he is part Clark, he is part Lex, letting us all see that. But then at the end, when the ring is shattered, he's got to make a decision. He knows that he is a Luthor. That is part of his destiny. He's got a dad who's embracing him, who's saying, come with me, you are my son. And he's seeing Dad do this ultimate evil to Clark, killing Clark, who is basically the other half of him, his other family. And he's got to make a choice in that moment. Clark lied to him, but look at what Dad's doing. Dad's trying to kill Clark. So, which way do I lie on this one? Which decision do I make? And innately, he looks at Clark and says, wait a minute, he was being good to me. Look what he was doing when he was training me. And I loved that they had that training with the heat vision, and that led to him finally focusing it on the kryptonite and shattering it. When I saw the eyes light up, I'm like, yes, this is such a great build to this. I was so worried that the way it was going to go was the kryptonite was going to make Connor so weak that Lionel was going to be able to drag him off, and that was where it was going. I didn't see it as the kid being able to get up and make the choice, and when that decision was made, I was like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted to see. What a great payoff. And that was one of the things that I just really loved, because you got to see him make a conscious decision that I was with you. At the end, I wanted to see this branch into a Superboy show, which says a lot for the kid. And I think when you have television series that have well-developed characters, you can naturally see the potential. That doesn't mean it should happen, but you can naturally see the potential for characters to spin off. We've talked about it with Ollie. We talked about it with the Justice League. All kinds of possible spin-offs that come out of Smallville. And you're right. I don't think they're going to occur. If they did, great, but not necessarily that would be such a good idea either, unless somebody had like a great long-term plan for what to do with those characters as far as continuing them on in series. But as people watching it, we should want to see more of them. We should care enough about the character that we're not like, oh, if they never bring that character back again, so what? That's a horribly written episode if you feel that way at the end. So that was a great example. Another character who I think really broke out in this episode, and we got to see her step up to the plate, Tess. One of my favorite characters on the show. I was so glad to see her back this season, but then to see these moments where she's confronting Lionel. And Lionel's really playing on her weakness. And we get to see Tess, in these vulnerable moments with Clark where she's bringing Connor to him and saying, hey, I need some help here. I want this kid to have a sense of morality, a sense of purpose, a sense of connection with the Kent side of him. And revealing to Clark, this kid's got your DNA too. And it was an interesting little bit where Clark had to make choices with Lois because of that. But Tess, I really loved seeing her in multiple, very strong, weak, and yet compassionate at other times too. We got to see the whole gambit of emotions with her as a character. I loved at the end, though, that we got to see her very strong against Lionel. She found, through friendship, she found that strength throughout this episode of connecting with Clark, connecting with Lois, to finally take down Lionel, going back to her past and something that we've seen in this episode. And what do you think of her as a character?
Oh, she's definitely the one I'm really digging, and I'm glad to see the growth they did with her. When they first introduced her, I was like, come on, what's this? Okay, then as time just started progressing, they're like, okay, yeah, she's getting kind of neat and interesting. And this last season, really, we've really seen a cool side of her, and she's not just a throwaway character. She's an actual part of Smallville universe, part of the mythos and the lore of that is Smallville now. And I'm glad to see that, because when her introduction was, for me, it was interesting, and I was like, okay, a female version of Lex Luthor maybe. I didn't know where they were going with her, the route they went with her, and just definitely these were some cool episodes for her. The last couple, really, I loved with the with her and Emil in the bachelor party episode. I thought that was funny with the two of them kind of having those moments.
We've gotten to see a much more three-dimensional character out of her. Seeing that, it's not everything that we've seen on the surface from her. There is something vulnerable about her. I was very worried that when this whole Lex clone business started, that we were going to see her turn. That she was going to become a bad guy, supporting Lex and ultimately making that decision to go that route. And that, I think, is some great storytelling, too, because I thought, and maybe you disagree with me, you never saw that coming, but when I saw her kind of hiding him out earlier on in the season, I'm like, oh, no, we're going to see the turn of Tess here, and she's going to betray the group. I didn't see it going the way that it did, and I love that it went the other direction, because I think it was far more interesting, because it wasn't what I saw coming.
Yeah, I never saw her turning. I saw her dying.
Okay.
I saw the death of Tess, and I'm like, I hope not, because, as I said, this season, I'm really getting, even last season, I kind of digged where she was coming from and who she was, and they really started fleshing her out a little bit and actually giving us something beyond the surface for her. So, yeah, definitely this season, I'm like, oh, God, I hope they don't kill her off. Please don't. She's another one that I don't want to see die. I want to see live on, because I'm hoping, somehow, some way, somewhere, this universe will continue on, whether it's in fan fiction or comics or who knows, and just in the deepest recessions of my brain, somewhere I want Tess to still be alive so that her character can still interact and she can still do stuff with the characters.
Now, Jim, there was some news announced this week. Did you see who was cast as Martha Kent in the Superman film?
Yes, Diane Lane, right?
Yeah. Which I think is a very cool casting, because she's able to do the vulnerability that Martha Kent brings, but also the strength
yes.
and compassion to that character. Where I see her being somebody who feels very compassionate yet very powerful at the same time, emotionally, and I just think it's great casting. When you hear about a film like Superman and you start hearing casting. Not just rumors, but some definite casting of who characters are. Does that get you more excited for the film? Where are you at on this one? Because to me now we've got Zack Snyder, we've got the guy from the Tudors as Superman who looks the part, and now we've got Diane Lane being cast as Martha Kent. I'm like sitting here as more and more I'm hearing about this film, I'm starting to get really jazzed up about it and thinking, I'm like, wait, this might really work. I mean, this could wind up being a really good Superman film, which is I think what we all want from the film. And I think anytime as fans we get concerned, it's because we get worried about that. Where are you at on this film? Are you getting more and more jazzed up about it now? Or are you still in like kind of a tentative place? Where are you at?
Well, it's with me in films, it's when I start hearing the casting, when they start saying the stuff, I immediately jump on, I look at them, I look at the past and okay, have they had anything in their past that would let me think that, yes, they could pull off this kind of role, or do I know this actor or actress? So I'm getting comfortable with the character. I know who they are, and now then I get to this weird point where I go, okay, I've seen what they've done. Let's see what they can do with the movie, and that's where I get to this calming stage where I stop. I don't want to say I don't get excited anymore, but I'm no longer like the kid who's jumping from thing. Oh, look at this kind of deal. Where I'm just sitting down, relaxed, and okay, what do we got going on here? Okay, let's see the actual story. Let's wait till we get the actual movie before we say yay or nay. Because I can very easily fall into that category of people who start judging stuff before I actually see it. And I recognize that about myself enough that once I get the information, once I get in my head I start getting in my head judgments on how this character is going to do, I got to pull back the reins on myself so I don't ruin a project for me. It's got to be, for me, I got to try to go into it as blind as possible. For me really just to absorb and kind of embrace what the creative, forces behind this movie wanted to accomplish. And it was one of those things where I learned that with all the old Batman movies with, Michael Keaton and on to Val Kilmer, and just when they started announcing who's playing who, I was getting, kind of like, oh, wow, could Arnold Schwarzenegger pull off Mr. Freeze? And I went into the movies with preconceived notions that it took me a while and multiple watchings, even currently, for me to get a solid opinion on the different movies and the different characters and the various versions that I've seen. So going forward, I'm trying to just hold back and let the work itself judge, what I'm looking at.
See, this actually is a casting that got me really excited for the film, because it's an actress who I've seen so many different things throughout her career that I know that she can play the diverse level of emotions that I expect from Martha Kent. So this gives me a lot of hope for the film.
And it's funny, I didn't actually answer what you were saying. With her casting, she is a very talented actress. I don't think I can recall any time seeing her in a movie where there wasn't at least a couple points in time like, wow, she's good. Mm-hmm. This is really good. So they're hiring quality actress. They're hiring, quality actors. It's kind of like, with the Batman movies and Jim Gordon. I thought that, they hired an actual quality actor, a person I would say is a true actor for that role. This is the same kind of deal with Martha Kent. We have an actual true actress doing this role and doing the part kind of deal. So I think we have a strong, character. We have a strong actress pulling up what could be a very vital role. So, yeah, it's a good deal coming out.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm looking forward to seeing more. I'm very curious to see who's going to be Perry White.
Yes, that's another one that I hope it's somebody, we know, somebody we've seen do stuff, just because, Perry is another one of those characters that you think about maybe could be in the background and not a major part, but if you get that strong actor with some serious chops, he can take and make that role an amazing character.
Yeah, absolutely. I put a poll up on the website just to get your thoughts as listeners on the Superman film. You got to check some of the results on it, where people are at, and how these kind of casting announcements affect you as a viewer. And there's also one up about Flashpoint, because there was a reveal. I don't know if you saw it yet on the Source, Jim, on Friday. They went through and they revealed the 8 covers for Flashpoint, for the minis. 8 of the minis, I should say. I think there's more than 8 down the road. It's funny, when I see more information on that, for example, with teasers, that gets me more excited for Flashpoint. And I was curious in the poll to see if fans were planning on picking up the whole thing, meaning the whole shebang, all the minis, picking up some of the minis based on preference. From the start of the poll, because I just put it up last night, but just from the start of the poll, it seems like a lot of our listeners, at least in the initial kickoff, are looking at picking up the main mini and then selected minis, based on interest as they're going through, with a couple people on the whole shebang. I'm going to be curious to see if there's people who are planning on picking up just the single mini, or people who aren't even interested in the mini at all. I'm just kind of curious to see where people are at on Flashpoint right now. So if you're a listener of the show, just go to the website. You don't have to, sign up for anything. You just click and vote. Just let us know kind of your climate survey. Did you hear about this Batman Live thing?
Yeah. I saw it on the actual website. I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting that they're going this route.
Yeah, which, especially with what's going on with Spider-Man.
With Spider-Man,
which
yeah.
I'm hoping the Spider-Man thing, works itself out. Because I hate to see a show like that it's become like a joke because of the amount of issues they've had with it. But I'm really hoping that, they work those kinks out, because I like the idea of the superhero genre, not even just the superhero genre, comics breaking into a variety of different medium. I think that in and of itself, because there's so many different genres that comics can encompass, that I do think comic properties then lend themselves quickly to branching out. I remember as a kid, we would go to SeaWorld and see, the superheroes on, water skis and all that kind of stuff. I think there's just something cool about seeing characters from comics in a variety of different places. So I'm hoping to see that show take off. I know it's overseas first. It's going to be in the UK and I believe Ireland. There's more information on our website, which links to the Source article that was announcing this. And that's in 2011. But then by summer 2012, it's going to be here in the States. So... Cool. It's something I'm hoping it's good, because I want to see it. I think we've got the advantage of it going overseas first to see what people are reacting to it, to see if it is a must-see when it comes back here. But I'm excited for that. I mean, Batman, a live show, and it's focusing on the story of Dick Grayson.
Yeah, I tell you, even if it flops over there, if they bring it to America, I gotta see it.
Yeah.
Even if everyone's saying it's the worst show, since the dawn of time, I have to see this. Just because, one, I think the Dick Grayson story is going to lend itself to a lot of really cool interactions and just great character moments on stage. And part of, I think, one of the big problems with the Spider-Man Live is so much of Spider-Man is the physical aspect of him swinging and flipping and doing all the stuff that only Spider-Man can do. If you're picking a Batman story where it's a lot about an emotional attachment, an emotional connection, you can have...
Dude, wait, hold on. I've got to stop you here, because I think I know where you're going with this. It's the story of the Flying Graysons.
Really? I thought it was a story of him becoming in with, joining Batman after his parents died.
No. They're going to have the Haley Circus. They're going to have the Flying They're showing, like, it's going to be the story prior to that. They actually mentioned Haley Circus as being a part of it.
Okay, well, throw my whole comments out the window. We're going physical here.
Well, here's the...
But it could...
Wait, have you seen, like, shows like Cirque du Soleil and stuff like that?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
So, I mean, these physical shows can be done and done very well on stage. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, Batman's a physical character, even if they're going to go the emotional route. And I know where you're going with this, so I will correct myself and backtrack a little bit, because you're going off of the concept. There is a strong emotional piece where to see these two characters connecting on a deep emotional level over trauma. You know, Bruce going through his emotional trauma with his parents and Dick Grayson going through his emotional trauma with his parents. That's going to play off very well on stage as a dramatic piece. And that's where you're going with that. And I'm sorry. I shouldn't have cut that out, because I know exactly where you're going with that, and you are 100% correct. But I do think, I mean, it's a Batman show. If you don't have a strong physical component to it as well, boy, are you missing the boat. I want to be wowed.
And they will have some cool moments with him fighting the various rogues gallery, and just thinking of like kind of the different kind of sets they can do with, you know, with Penguin, with Riddler, with Joker. I'm assuming they're going to go with the big names, you know, not bring in somebody that, you know, the regular everyday person won't know. So I definitely, there's a lot of potential for some really cool stuff, but just like with any type of production, there's always a, ooh, that was a bad idea, you know, potential. Because, you know, you think about it, you know, Spider-Man itself, you're like, oh, that's a, you know, it's a really cool idea concept, and it's not, you know, we're not seeing fruition of it yet. But who knows? Maybe Spidey can turn things around, and that'll become a very big hit and a success, which actually I hope it does. But you know, you never know where this whole thing's going to go until it actually lays out and actually we get the show.
I want to see Spider-Man, by the way. I actually do. I know that there's, you know, the little quirks and the whole thing's by, but I actually do really want to see it. I'm a fan of Spider-Man. I really like the character. So it's one of those shows, so even though, in spite of my comments, I actually do want to see it to make my own judgment on the whole thing. I'm just sad that from a fan of comics in general, I don't like to hear anything comics go wrong. You know, because I think it's an opportunity to open the eyes of people maybe who dismiss comics, if that makes sense. So when it goes wrong and you're hearing about that in the media and seeing it on Saturday Night Live where they're making parody sketches about it, I don't know if you got to see that one, but they did a law firm that specializes in Spider-Man related injuries. It was a very funny sketch. And I mean, that type of stuff is funny, but I would love to see, you know, the show do well like you're talking about it, because I think it's good for the industry just to have people getting a different notice of these characters and getting a different respect for them. So, you know, I'm hoping with you that those kinks get worked out and that we hear some more positive about Spider-Man, because I actually do want to see the show eventually at some point. So I'm hoping I get the opportunity to do it. So it'll be funny to see how that all goes about. I loved your comment, though. Yeah, I think they're going to go with, like, the Penguin or the Joker versus somebody else, you know, instead of, like, Batman versus Pippi, the sassy villain.
I'm thinking, like, instead of going with, like, Hush or even Bane, that a lot of people don't know who Bane is. They got to go with the people who, unfortunately, I don't want it to be a knock on, but people who were on the TV show, because that's who people know. People know the Joker, they know the Riddler, they know the Penguin, and they know him because of that, 50s TV show. And it's not a knock on the show. It's a great show, and I enjoyed it, and I still do enjoy it when I do watch, catch the reruns and whatnot of it. But it's those characters are the ones that everybody, the common, non-comic book fan would know of.
You know, it's funny, we talk about the 60s show, and we make that comment, but look how that show has not been on the air. Is it on in syndication anywhere? I don't think it's even on television.
I see it occasionally, every so often, and I think like Cartoon Network or Boom or one of those channels that deal in the various going old school television.
TV Land ran it years ago.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them run it in ages, but it is one of those shows that I agree with you defines them. I wonder, though, how many people are more familiar with Batman now. When I say people, I'm talking about kids, teenagers and things like that are more familiar with the characters through cartoons, which also focus on the main characters that you're talking about. So it would be interesting to see how many people still reference that. Our generation probably does, but the younger generation, I don't know that they've had exposure to that show. Other than the fact that the films probably run on television a few times, and maybe they saw it that way. But I'm guessing more of their exposure is through animation, because there's been various animated series with Batman.
True.
Including The Batman. Like, my students all watched The Batman when it was on, that most recent one. And then I wonder, Brave and the Bold, how many kids got an opportunity to see that. And if maybe that's their exposure to the characters. So I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see how it goes. Kind of cool, live-action Batman.
Yeah.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look... Great neutron!
Jim, I want to talk about Detective Comics real quick, 874. There's so many Batman books that are just fantastic since this whole Batman Inc. thing kicked off. And this is one of those situations where the co-feature that involved Jim Gordon, because they canceled the co-features now, they took all of this and they put it into the main story, and now it's going to be folded into Detective Comics in general. This is going to branch off into what's going on with Detective Comics. It's a very interesting story to me because it introduces James Gordon Jr., a character who I totally forgot about, who is being brought in. It's Jim's son, and he's bad news. And I mean, not just a little bit bad news. For Jim Gordon, who you figure how many villains has he arrested, put through the system, hoping for rehabilitation. I mean, this is a guy who argued when the Joker shot his daughter and put him in that circus tent in Killing Joke. This is the man who argued, let's show him the system works. I mean, for him with his son here to be so tentative like this shows you the kind of person his son really is as his core. Jim Gordon's not a dumb man, but you've also got the emotional problem that this is his son. This isn't the Joker. This isn't the Penguin. This isn't Two-Face. These are relationships. Two-Face was his friend, Harvey Dent. This is now a stronger relationship. This is my flesh and blood, my son. Yes, he's done horrible things along the way, but how do you not... You close the door, but yet there's always a crack, even if you don't want it to be there. And you see that playing emotionally on Jim Gordon in this piece. I loved visually how the whole thing looked. I loved how his reactions were playing off, because I felt a discomfort in Jim Gordon that you don't often see with the character. And I really loved visually how it looked in this. This is a great... You talked about emotional, dramatic pieces in our last segment. Wow, put this on stage. I would love to see this diner sequence.
Yeah, and it's funny, I'm trying to remember seeing... I think he may have been around before I got back into comics, or before I picked up Batman, because I don't remember the kid. I don't remember the son. So all my information I'm getting is from this. And it's funny, as you're talking about how he's a bad man, how he was just like... I completely already had that figured out. I already had a good understanding that he did some horrific things just from the stuff that I've read so far as the story's playing out. So I got to say bravo to writing and to creation, to the creative team on this, just to bring people who have no idea who this kid is up to speed. And just as and they're bringing you up to speed within the context of the story, not taking time out from the the pages or from the panels to do a must-do flashback so everyone sees it. No, it's as the story's playing out, I'm getting a pretty good understanding of what he's done. Only thing, I don't have the specific details, but even at the end of the book, you see Gordon with that missing boy found. Peter Pan strikes again. And I'm immediately thinking, okay, was his son a kidnapper, or did his son do something to children, or was his son the victim of the Peter Pan, or what's the deal? What's the connection there kind of story? Thoughts going through my head.
Oh, I think the Son is a bad egg all the way across the board. Everything he says about himself is absolutely true. He's a psychopath. And that's the way he's always going to be. To the point where I guarantee you that ketchup that's on his sweater, he put that there. Why did he put that there? Because he wanted to screw at Dad's head. And he makes this joke about, it's blood, Dad. I killed a waitress while you were talking to Barbara. Her head is stuffed in the toilet of the men's room. And then he goes, it's just ketchup. See, I'm sorry. The whole time he was doing all this, he went into the bathroom earlier. He set the sinks up so they would overflow, so Dad would see that at the end. So Dad would start questioning when he walked in there, am I going to find the head? So this is this twisted mentality. Now, did he actually kill a waitress or anything like that? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that he did. That's how crazy I think this kid is. But, I mean, that sequence at the end, what kind of a twisted, warped mind sets the sinks to overflow to make you think it was a toilet overflowing?
Well, and here's the funny thing. I was thinking, I agree with you completely that he did that so Dad would think that, but I honestly think he was thinking he was telling a funny joke. And I was kind of, if you take the whole thing out that he actually is a killer, I found that kind of funny that he did the whole, put some ketchup on his shirt and said, oh, it's a thing, the head, and then did that one step beyond in the joke to make the sinks overflood. If you or I were sitting there joking around saying, aha, we did that, and we saw the water flowing, we're like, dang, you really went all out for this joke, didn't you? Like, you got to go the extra mile sometimes. And that's, in my head, I think what he was trying to do. Now, it's not funny because he is an actual killer.
Right. Exactly. Now,
but I think he was trying to actually tell a joke, and he just doesn't get the concept of humor.
Now, here's my question. This gang at the end that Batman and Robin are fighting, or Batman and Red Robin, I should say, are fighting. Did you wonder, because their gang symbols are ones that they can't identify, are they working for James Jr.?
That's my first thought. That's the first thought that popped in my head is it's not a coincidence that these people are here, that these are the ones who stole the bird, which is where Gordon first saw his son on the video surveillance cameras. It's not a coincidence. I'm thinking these are his people, and I hope not. I hope he's actually is getting help, and I'm hoping that he is actually able maybe to suspend the psychotic tendencies and keep that at check and at bay. But this is a Batman title, and a lot of times the family reunions aren't so warm and sunny, and they don't usually end happy. So I'm thinking that Jim Jr. is the leader of this gang, and when Batman finally decodes what those symbols mean, everything's going to play back to Gordon, and I think we're going to get either a new rogue for Batman to deal with, which is the Son, or he's going to get arrested and put in Arkham, or there's going to be something happen, and I don't think it's going to end well for Jim Gordon.
Dick Grayson and Tim Drake working together. You've mentioned multiple times on the show just how wonderful that is, but especially with Dick still dealing with the after effects of what was happening to him in the previous arc of this particular book. I love seeing how Red Robin's advising him on this and saying, hey, you're not ready for primetime, fella. Look what's going on here. And he's lucky that he has Red Robin there to compensate for him. And I love how Dick Grayson's kind of going through this realization that there were things that Tim's right about, but he needs to be there. He needs to clear his head. He needs to work through this. And we see him do this, which is, to me, it's a very Batman move. We get to see that Dick Grayson is Batman. Bruce would do this same thing. Bruce would wind up in this position, and Bruce would work through it the way Dick Grayson did. It has shown us how Dick Grayson's evolved into being Batman, being the type of man who can be Batman and can handle any situation that's thrown at him, no matter his condition. He's able to keep pressing on, and that becomes impressive to me. Yet, he hasn't been lost once again. But I love those moments like when, basically apparitions are speaking to him. He's still got to work through that. He's seeing things that just aren't there. And it was some, I thought some very, very cool moments. Especially when we got to see him looking at this spider. And he's, really seeing it in a way that's a little more twisted than probably the rest of us would be seeing it at the moment because of what he's going through.
I tell you, I got to give just huge props to art team on this one. And just, folk, pencils, inks, colors, the whole deal, especially in this 2-page panel. It's the center of the book where you got these great heavy red tones as Dick and Tim are fighting the bad guys, and you got the central line fighting, then you got the two offshoots, kind of, it's, a real freeform type of page, but it still has that same flow through. It was just, I sat here and I stared at this image for, probably longer than I normally would, just catching the little nuances down to the bat symbols on the bottom of his boot. I was like, that's cool. It just, really like seeing the kind of look on the bad guys' faces as they're getting clocked, and just, great usage of, just that is Batman type of stuff, plus the coloring setting the great theme. This right here is something that I would love to see this in, a nice little poster, a nice little, something that you can hang on the wall.
Dude, these are Peter Pan's Lost Boys that they're fighting. The missing kids. I wonder if these are the missing kids. The gang.
I betcha. Oh, God, it's got to be.
Unsolved mysteries at the end where we see Peter Pan stringing, a missing boy found dead, but did they all wind up that way? There's a lot of unsolved missing cases down here. Who's Peter Pan? Is Peter Pan James Jr.? And these are his lost boys.
You know what? I'm going to make a guess that James Jr. is not Peter Pan, but he was one of the Peter Pan victims, and he got away.
No, see, I'm telling you, dude, I think okay, and we might disagree on this one. I think James Jr. is involved in something big. I don't think this was set up as just a quick little family reunion to do some emotional thing with Gordon. I think this is setting up James Jr. as a major bad guy in the Batman universe. And I think this gang is his.
I hope not. Yeah, as I said before, I don't think family reunions go too well in the Bat universe, so you're probably right. But I'm hoping that that's what they want us to think, and the big swerve is that James Jr. is not in the gang. Maybe he was held by the gang, maybe because of his psychotic tendencies he ran with the gang, but I'm going to say right now, he's free and clear of them, and he's actually is what he's telling his dad. He's not the villain. But throughout this thing, we're going to probably be giving clues to make us think that he is.
What's the point? What's the point of having him?
Well, it's going to be the whole swerve. I think we're going to get clues, and we're supposed to start thinking that it's him. Up until the end, we're going to find out that it's not him.
So you trust him over Barbara Gordon's intuition about him? If it's a matter of dealing with Barbara's read on somebody or James Jr.'s read on somebody, I'm going with Barbara Gordon every time. This guy's bad news.
Hey, if when you put it that way, yeah, you got to trust. But I'm just hoping I want at least one happy ending for a family in the Bat universe. They don't have that many of them. They make kind of moments where they try to deal with what happens to them, and they try to make the best of it. Like we had that cool moment where they're all sitting down watching the Zorro. It was the whole family was together kind of deal, and that was a nice cool moment. But normally, family interactions in the Bat title are not a good thing. And I'd like to have at least one time where it is.
Well, see, this is where I think we're seeing it differently, because I think right now they've had nothing but happy endings at the moment. Bruce came back. Batman Inc.'s been started. Dick Grayson and Damian have taken over as the Batman and Robin of Gotham. Tim Drake is back up as Red Robin. Now he's back with the Teen Titans, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. There's so much going on here where everything's kind of falling back into place. Now it's time to get dirty. So, I'm taking it that James Jr. is, let's get dirty. And see how these capable Batman and Robin deal with somebody who is a foe that's operating on this kind of twisted level. I think to me the whole point of this was to set up just how twisted and calculating this guy is. He just manipulated Dad's head, really threw him for a loop in the diner. And I think this is all about getting into Jim's head and showing him that, hey, you don't know about me, you don't know what to think about me, and I'm going to keep playing that game with you as much as I can. Because I think what's going to end up happening is James Jr.'s trying to set up a possible environment so people are thinking exactly what you are, that the swerve is going to be that he wasn't involved at all. I think he wants Dad thinking that. He wants Dad thinking, hey, I'm a good guy. I'm coming back into the city. I'm trying to take care of things, and do things the right way. I'm trying to connect you that way. To leave the question mark in Dad's head. How is Batman going to react to... Because Dick has a relationship with this guy. And this guy's trying to set up situations where Dick Grayson will vouch for him. there's no way that's going to go well.
Well, I'm going to 100% agree with what you're saying, that this is not going to end well. And it's funny, as I'm going through, I'm looking at the issue and just using the basis on coloring, just how the guy's being colored. He's all in that diner sequence. You look at him, Gordon, they're using kind of more purplish type still has some orange and reds in there, but there is still kind of a little bit of a purple. With him, it's always reds and yellow. Reds and oranges kind of deal, where they're really just kind of accentuating. Just okay, there's usually it's like a rage, anger, bad guy kind of, just flashes, and warnings kind of deal. So yeah, it's probably going to end poorly for him, unfortunately. And I feel bad for Gordon because I like Gordon, and one of the toughest things would have to be dealing with a son who is a homicidal murderer, especially for someone with as much honor and integrity that Jim Gordon has, dealing with the fact that his namesake is the complete opposite of him and is psychotic. And so you sit there, you hold on to the thought maybe could give him comfort that it's not that he's bad, he's just crazy kind of deal, but he's a murderer. He's still just this homicidal murderer, and it's good. Oh, this is not going to end well for Jim, and I feel bad for the guy.
Oh yeah, and just to echo one thing you're saying, I want your passion as far as wanting to see things go well for Jim Gordon. I read No Man's Land where his wife died. His second wife died. I've seen the multiple histories where this guy has had one wife and she left him, and then another wife who died. His issues with Batman where how much can I? This guy's one of my best friends, but how much can I trust him because the man's wearing a mask? And there's been multiple people under that cowl various times when I've needed him most. And it's those type of things where Jim Gordon is one of those characters throughout my entire life. I have loved Jim Gordon as a character, so I want to see him have a happy ending too. But part of the fun of Jim Gordon is seeing him go through these horrible traumas and how well he comes out at the end. As far as he just somehow finds, anyway, I shouldn't say how well he comes out at the end, but how he finds the strength at the end to carry on and to do the right thing. I think this is going to be one where it's going to be very tough for him to make the decision to do the right thing. Jim, I want to talk casually about Teen Titans number 92. This is one, it's a two-part crossover with the most recent issue of Red Robin as well, which both are series that I'm just loving. But talk about a series that's been revitalized and reinvigorated with Teen Titans. Every issue, once again, is a must-grab issue. And this is absolutely no exception. Damian, as a member of the team, I just addressed in the Detective Comics sequence beforehand that we've got Tim Drake now. He's back on Teen Titans, right? Isn't that what the ending of the series was? The ending of this issue was? He's now the Robin, so to speak, of Teen Titans again.
Oh,
Red
yeah,
Robin's
big time.
back.
And I did not see that coming. That was just because I was thinking Damian was going to stick around, Tim was going to do his thing, and maybe eventually we would get Tim back to the Titans. But I didn't see it happening this quickly, and I was, in a way, I was shocked, surprised, pleased, going, "Oh man, I kind of would have liked to see a little bit more." But we got a good kind of story and evolution of Damian in there where he did get a little something out of us. And the door is still open where he may come back again later if Tim's in the middle of something with Bruce. Maybe we'll get Damian on the Titans again. Definitely, the possibility's still there. He didn't burn that bridge.
Well, I did like the closing moments with these two. You sure you don't have to leave on my account? Please, that bunch is bad enough, but then add you to the mix? No, thank you. I really liked how you got the idea that Damian was saying that on the surface, but inside there's regret with part of him. There's that part of him that would like to stay. I loved the moments with Damian and Ravager, where we got to see the two of them get up and fight, and how the two of them were starting to really connect. There was a respect that was growing between those two. So I'm with you in the sense that if Damian is not going to obviously be a regular part of the team, I would love to see him back again, because he worked very well on the team in this book, added something interesting that kind of shook up the dynamic. But I'm as thrilled as can be that Tim is back, because it's very rare in comics that, because nowadays you'll find out things from previews and things like that, where something so blindsides you that you're like, I did not see that coming. And it's something good like that, like a character returning. Usually winds up being something that they put on the cover, and you kind of know that means, well, the character's going to be back on the team, or they're going to be around. Red Robin, I always took it as him being a guest appearance, that, you know, he was off doing his own thing. But thinking about it, the timing is perfect. Look how Tim has evolved, and where he's at now at this point in his life, with Bruce being back, that mission being over. Yes, he's got his own cases and his own caseload, but he's more back in the state that he was in when he was Robin. And there is that opportunity for him now to be able to take on a more active role once again in the Teen Titans. I could not be more thrilled.
I tell you, it's funny. This rereading this final page where it's where it's Dick and Damian working together, taking down the bad guys. You know, you just see him saying, I can see the changes. Damian was more patient this time before making his move, waiting for me to draw their attention fully. I recognize some new moves, and he hasn't even used one of his blades. I'd love just seeing that whole deal, and especially even as, you know, Dick's like, hey, sorry I was such a bust for you. He's like, nah, you had pleasant memories there. You made friends. I have one friend here. That's all I really need. And I thought that was a cool, you know, moment, kind of like him saying, and I'm assuming he's talking about Dick Grayson as his one friend in Gotham, I'm assuming. You know, so that's a cool thing to see him acknowledging that Dick is more than just a nuisance to him. They're actually partners now. And it's, again, cool seeing Damian, you know, a little bit of evolution and involvement in the kid.
Except he worded it in a way that shows that he's pretending that it's like a nuisance. Because the way that he said it was, I know you wanted me to find some friends, but I've already got one here in Gotham, and one is more than enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's never going to be that, like, full kind of, I'm going to have this really deep emotional moment with you. And I've got to throw a little backhanded comment in there as well, which so fits Damian. I love that because I agree with you, and the sentiment is that this is his revealing that Dick Grayson is something more to him, and that friendship is there. But it's revealed in a way that only Damian can. And I like that, because it fits the kid. And it's where he's becoming very likable to me. Now, they're going up against the calculator in this whole bit, and we find out partway through this that it isn't the calculator. It's that his robots are so well crafted, this robot did not realize that he was not the calculator. That was a cool twist.
Oh, yeah, big-time cool swerve. And once again, I love the fact that both Damian and Tim realize this. And when Wonder Girl's getting ready to just pound him to death, he's like, you don't want to do this. You can't do that. And he talked her down from actually killing him, because even though he knew she wouldn't be killing an actual human being, he knew it would feel like it to her. And just the fact that she could have done it, she could have pulled the trigger, she could have taken a human life, would have been enough to really do some serious mental, emotional damage to her, and he had to make sure he protected his friend. I thought that was a cool moment. And even just letting Damian go and cutting the guy, it was just a great story arc, just playing out of the emotions and just the coolness that is the Teen Titans.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here's the question. Let's talk about the team role. One of the things I've really loved about this two-part crossover has been, in both books, Red Robin and this one, the relationship and the playing off of Cassie and Red Robin and Connor to a certain extent. And when I say Connor, it's the way he defers to Tim Drake as the leader, and looking to see what Tim Drake's going to come up with as a plan. And how he's like, yeah, I know you got the plan ready for us. I know what you're going to do. These kind of like the two buddies high-fiving together at the moment. Who do you want to see as leader of the Titans when this is done? Do you want to see it to be, do you think it's going to be Tim? Do you think it's going to be Cassie? Because I think Cassie's done a great job as the leader. I think it's been interesting. I'm curious to see what's going to happen here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, if you had asked me a while ago, I would have said, hey, Tim's back, he's the leader. But, Cassie, I do want to see Cassie, continue on the role. But I always lean towards Tim. I always like seeing him in that role kind of deal. And it's interesting to see what's going to happen with him. Will he be able to interact? Because he does know her, he does respect her, and he will follow her orders if she is the leader. But it's going to be one of those interesting, awkward kind of moments. Now, definitely, looking forward, I see Cassie keeping control. I see Cassie staying on as the leader. But I think there's going to be a little bit of moments, there's going to be a little bit of adjustments on everybody, because you can be a leader and you can still count on others' tactical advice. Because you look at, Batman, Batman's never really been the leader of the Justice League, but he's always been he's been the go-to guy for a plan. And I see Cassie kind of having that type of deal with, when they're in the situation, turning to Tim saying, "What do you got? Red Robin, what's your thoughts?" Kind of, kind of leadership. Her having that confidence in herself that she would do that, and she would be able to ask for opinions, ask for advice from her teammates.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how this is going to turn out, or if it's going to be not one of those two and maybe somebody else. I don't want to see Beast Boy as leader, because I didn't like that. Yeah. It was in 52, wasn't it, where they were going through that year where Beast Boy was leader of the team and he had that relationship with Raven. I didn't like him as leader, so I don't want to see that. Kid Flash, I don't see him being the leader of the team. Connor, I don't see as being the leader either.
Well, Connor's going to be probably in and out just because of his own, world and the craziness that's going on in Smallville. So I don't see him being around all the time. And it's a funny thing, because I thought the same thing with Tim. So who knows, what we're actually going to get full-time Titans.
Except when Tim was on the team before, he had his own book in Robin. So I guess I don't see why Connor having his own book and own events going on would affect Teen Titans. Because we always assumed with Tim that these things just kind of happened when in between his missions in Robin. So I guess I don't see why Superboy's book would affect him being on the Teen Titans. I think we're going to see him every issue, the same way we would Tim.
Oh, possible.
Because, Damian was in this, and we were perfectly willing to accept Damian was going to be a part of this, and he has major roles in the Bat universe. So, I mean, in multiple books. So if we're assuming that there's time for Damian to be there, I guess we can assume the same thing. Because Cassie's referred to multiple times that she's one of the few people that actually lives at Titan's Tower. Because these guys, when on the off-camera time, are often their own books fighting their own battles. So I guess that's something that Titans has done a really good job of. Because remember, it was the weekends that they would hang out with the Titans. That was the concept when Jeff Johns, re-kicked this book off. And it was kind of a cool way to explain that there are times when the Titans are able to have missions that don't affect the other books in the DC universe. It doesn't have to be necessarily every weekend or even just limited to the weekends. They would team up together when they'd be on call, like the Justice League is. Because we assume that members of the Justice League are able to be on that team in there, like Dick Grayson. How are we assuming that he's able to be a part of the Justice League if he's got multiple Batman books that he's doing his missions on? So if he can do that, how can Tim Drake and Superboy not be able to be on Titans?
Well, Dick's a really good multitasker.
It's one of those things in comics. You have to kind of suspend your disbelief that these characters are able to do these amazing things of being in multiple places at once.
And it's you got to look at just if you honestly look 100% pure logic, none of these people could really pull this off because their bodies would be so exhausted. You think about just the physical strain of one patrol night in Gotham. A couple hours of patrolling, that's got to just take a toll, and you couldn't keep doing it every single night and then do these intergalactic things. And so there's got to be some just, it's a comic book, enjoy it, and move on with that. So I'm going to throw out my comment about, Connor being too busy to actually be on it. I think we're getting a full team here. I hope Rose stays on because, again, she is such an interesting character that with the loss of Damian from the team, I want to keep at least one antagonist on the team and just what she can bring to the story.
See, I don't. Aside from Damian leaving, and I agree with you. There's a possibility we might see Damian pop up from time to time, because Jason Todd did that back in the day when he was the Robin and Dick Grayson was Nightwing. I think we could see the same thing happen here with Damian, where he would pop in from time to time. I don't see anybody who's currently on the team leaving. I think we're getting that new character, Solstice, that was in the Wonder Girl one-shot. She's coming in at some point. I'm curious to see what she brings to the dynamic, but I don't see anybody from this core group leaving. With you, I would be disappointed if any of them would, actually. Raven I want there, Beast Boy I want there, I want to see this whole team come together. I actually am really liking how they're exploring Raven's feelings for Beast Boy, that they're there and they're dangerous for her, and she doesn't quite know how to deal with that. And I like that. There's something about that I find quite interesting. It actually makes them compelling characters in the whole thing. So I think the team right now, J.T. Cruel, Nicholas Scott, and in this case it was George Giannetti doing the art chores on this fill-in issue. I think this book has just been stellar since it's been the creative team switch. So I'm a big Teen Titans fan. And the same goes for Red Robin. I mean, I think these two books just blended well into each other in this crossover in a way that honored both books. So it was really kind of cool to see all this.
Oh, yeah.
Jim, I want to talk real quickly about Gotham City Sirens number 20. This is one of those books we haven't talked about in a while, but I've been really enjoying. We've got Peter Calloway who's doing the writing, and I guess I was wondering, was this a book that they were holding for Paul Dini because he launched it to come back to, because we've seen a lot of fill-ins on this one, and when Calloway took over on writing, I guess I was kind of, I was wondering, well, is this going to be the ongoing writer? This issue is a great example of how you do this book. I'm loving this Harley Quinn story. It's a Harley Quinn spotlight. Post what was going on with Selina. Selina had this big arc where she was... Zatanna and Talia and her were trying to deal with this fact of should Selina remember Batman or not, remember who he is. And Talia was trying to take Selina out of the game, out of the running for Bruce. And honestly, to kill her if necessary, to accomplish that goal, because she thought she was a threat to Bruce. But I also think there was also that jealousy that there is a relationship between Selina and Bruce. But we also got to see how the relationship with Bruce is something that it's a double-edged sword for Selina. And part of the hurt of loving this man who can't return the love to the same level that she has it, is something that it's brought a lot of hardship to her, a lot of turmoil. Look what happened in Heart of Hush. She had her heart cut out. I mean, yeah. This has been a relationship where she's pined after him, she's become an equal and a partner with him, and yet all the time it's never gone forward, the relationship. And she's seen that he's this boyfriend who's a negative influence in many ways. Whether he's trying to be deliberately or not, it's still a bad relationship for her in many ways. Can it evolve into something more where it is healthier? I don't know. And we're going to see how that goes. But I found it a very interesting exploration of that. Well, as a friend watching all this, Harley connects with it, with her relationship with the Joker. And when you got this lunatic like Harley Quinn who connects with something like that, in her mind she's like, there's only one way to take care of this. You cut that part of your life out. And then how are you going to cut that out? She's going to do the one thing nobody else has been able to do. She's going to kill the Joker. And it led to this whole sequence of events in this issue, which I adored. Because you got really deep into Harley Quinn's head to see how she thinks. And a lot of times with her lunacy outwardly, where she does all these crazy little things and her one-liners and one-shots, it's hard to remember that this is somebody who is a psychologist. She can really get into what makes people tick and utilize that against them. And this was a brilliant issue that really reminds us, forget what you see on the surface with Harley. Yeah, she's a nut, but she's a smart nut and has some really diabolical notions on how to handle people that give her an edgy nature that we keep forgetting about. And this was really cool for me.
Oh, yeah, big time. And it was funny thing, what I loved seeing was just the darkness of Harley, because I was so used to the light and campy and funny kind of weirdness, goofiness kind of deal where she's not this evil hardened criminal. She seemed more fun and kind of more confused and lost girl than killer. And we see her opening up here with just some beautiful wickedness that I was very surprised by. And I was taken back. I always knew she was intelligent because the whole doctor and just she studied psychopaths and she just kind of went a little bit over edge being around them so much. But I never saw the darkness in her and the killing capabilities of Harley.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've seen it more in her video game appearances recently. But in her solo series, Harley Quinn, you didn't see it as much because she was more like the heroine in the story. So she kind of skirted that line. It's a great series. I highly recommend seeking out if you haven't read Harley Quinn. But when you get to see these particular moments and you see her assault on Arkham, you see that she had a plan in place. Not only did she know the Joker's plans, but she knew her own plans for getting it. Like, she helped recommend Sin for her role in Arkham, because of the fact that she knew that there was wounds in her that she could utilize later on and play on to get her own way. The same thing with guards. I mean, to be able to manipulate them based on their love for certain things to get past what they were doing and actually kill them if necessary to get where they were going to go. But then to show regret, because I always liked that person, I'm like, what? Yeah. Wouldn't that, like, remorse mean that you wouldn't kill them? You would find some way maybe perhaps to subdue them?
Could have hit him with knockout gas instead of having the whole thing blow up, but she needed the explosion to draw the attention.
Right.
And once you get people on edge, they're going to make little mistakes. Like they left Sin alone for her to drop the flower, and then everyone's scrambling over to the west wall. She's able to hit the east side where Clayface is and use the crowbar to get Clayface out, and the crowbar to enrage him. It was just a great play and just a wonderful manipulating of all the pieces. You want the guards to run over here, to run over here, to run over here, and just get them chasing their tail, and you sneak right in. This was beautiful planning on her part, and just, again, great crafting of a story that I was like, man, this is neat.
Cash is one of my favorite characters from the Batman Arkham Asylum game, because when you're going through Arkham, you encounter Cash multiple times, and to see him in the comic and to see him playing off a Harley here, I'm actually very worried for him because I actually really like and enjoy the character, and it's funny how my love for him comes more from the video game than from the comic books themselves. But I'm very curious to see what her confrontation is going to be like, because we're going to see, right, an inevitable confrontation with the Joker.
Yeah.
And are her friends going to stop her? Is she going to stop herself? What is going to happen there?
It's the great unknown. Where is this going to go to? We know she can't kill the Joker. They can't kill off the Joker because it's the Joker. But will it because she didn't do it, or will it be because her friend stopped her? What is going to be the story behind it? Are we going to see Harley back in Arkham, which I hope not, because I like seeing her out on freedom, or is this the kind of the end of the Merry Little Gang?
I don't see it being the end of the Merry Little Gang, because I see the three of them sticking around together. But I love seeing how are they going to move forward from here? Where do they go from here? I do see them being a support piece for her in this. And once again, that's one of the things that I like about this. They're three very different people. They have three very different focuses. Two are clearly villains, whereas one skirts that line, because she's got the Batman thing going on. But yet they've proven multiple times that when the chips are down, they will be there for each other, which is something that keeps them together. It's the glue that keeps them together. They came together out of necessity with there being no Batman in Gotham when that all came together. The three of them banded together to survive what Black Mask was doing. And I love that 20 issues later, we see them having found a respect and a need to be together in a way that has to do with a twisted friendship that I think is very genuine. This is a book that I'm really surprised at how much I've really grown to enjoy, and to enjoy these characters being together. Because I always thought I would be saying at this point that I want them to split up and Catwoman solo again in her own book. Because I've always loved a Catwoman solo book. I've gotten to the point right now where I'm like, well, no, I kind of like the three of them together because the dynamic is quirky and interesting. It works. They're so different as three individuals that it's led to some very interesting storytelling. And I think this is a book that's gotten better as it's gone along. It's gotten more consistent as it's gone along. And these last two arcs, I think, are really showing us a direction for this book. If you dropped Gotham City Sirens, I would highly recommend this issue because it's a great jumping on point, in the sense that, Harley Quinn's going on the warpath after the Joker, but it's a great chance to kind of see if this book is the flavor that you're looking for with it, or even the Catwoman arc that preceded it would be a great arc to jump on, because we're seeing some real consistency in the direction for this book and where it's going, and I'm really liking it.
Yeah. And we've gotten some great Poison Ivy stuff, too. She's a character that I was glad was in this because she's one of those, for me, who's really the misunderstood villain who could very easily do a full hero turn. Just because of, it's, you look at what she's going for, and it's like, the whole protection of the planet kind of deal, but she's not just a pure veggie creature. She is a human side of her. She has to be around the humans because she can't just be pure plant. And we saw that in the issue, the one shot kind of showing her away from everything and her why she kind of had to come back because there was a longing to be within humans, to be around them. She isn't pure plant, she's not pure human, she's a mixture of the two, and she needs that kind of environment.
Agreed. Well, it's a cool book. So that's Gotham City Sirens, issue 20. Actually, before we close off that segment, do you want to see them stay together, or would you like to see Catwoman in a solo book again, or what would you like to see out of this?
100% stay together. Yeah. I enjoyed the Catwoman solo series, but I'm enjoying this more. And I'd like to see Catwoman make more appearances in the other Bat titles, where that's where she can explore her relationship with Bruce. I think that's great usage of her in those series. But for me, I like the three of them together because I like the different story possibilities where they can go off on a 4-issue, 3-issue, 2-issue tangent on one of the characters by themselves, and then you pull the rest of the three at the end or in the middle of it or however you want to do it, or even just have them do one of the characters by themselves, or then do a massive episode where all three of them are working together to help themselves and kind of protect their group. So I like the story possibilities and the complexities of these three together, and that's, for me, I think is more enticing than just a Catwoman solo series.
See, to me, the Catwoman solo series was all about Team Catwoman. Because I really liked Catwoman, Slam Bradley, Holly. There was more of a team there, and I liked them as well. So it's funny, everything you're saying about this book is exactly what I liked about Catwoman's solo book. It was her relationships, her interpersonal relationships with the quirky characters in her solo series. So I guess what I'm seeing now is this has evolved into being what I liked about the Catwoman solo series. So I'm feeling right at home. So it's funny how we're having a kind of a different experience with that, because I loved Catwoman's solo book. So I think that's why I was figuring at this point I would want her back in a solo book so much, because it would be lacking what I liked in the Catwoman solo book. Now I'm like, no, now it's evolved into being with different characters, and that adding to a fresh dynamic, it being exactly what I enjoyed about Catwoman in her last series so much. It's now happening here in a very different way with these villains here. I like that. I mean, it's like coming home for me. You always used to talk about Team Arrow and the Arrow family in the Green Arrow book. This is like Team Catwoman 2.0 for me with these group, and it's working really, really well.
Now I can get out of here.
I want to talk about Brightest Day number 21. This is really interesting for me because more and more, and I think this is tying into, we're going to have to talk about this War of the Green Lanterns. If you take a look at the symbol on the front cover, isn't that the same symbol that Krona and his people are wearing at the end of the first issue? Did you read the most recent Green Lantern issue?
Yeah.
Isn't that what Krona and his people are wearing?
Yes, definitely what they're wearing.
So is this White Lantern stuff then tied into Krona?
Yeah, maybe.
This leads to the whole thing. Is the White Lantern good? Is it... is our understanding of what good and evil are. Because there's times where I'm watching Krona, I'm like, well, some of what he was doing in the beginning isn't necessarily bad. He's just, interested in exploring. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. This pulls at my heartstrings starting off issue 21.
Oh, God, yeah.
We're seeing the Atom exploring the ashes of Hawkman and Hawkwoman, or Hawkgirl. At this point, it's important that we see the various members of the League show up here. From longtime friends, and the Teen Titans are there. And JSA's there. This is, DEFCON 4. You need to be getting out there and, we're starting to now count down to, we've got a huge problem that's starting to happen. And we've got to start putting everyone on alert. And, do we need to start thinking that this is all-out war on the heroes? Because these two have been taken out. Aquaman's been taken out. And now they're finding out this is all somehow connected to Deadman and the White Lantern. They're trying to gather evidence. Dove's saying, but Deadman is really trying to fight this. The Ring is dragging him into this, not him. And Hawk doesn't want to hear that. He's been suspicious of him all along. And in many ways, Hawk is saying, this is just reaffirming what I've always thought about the guy from the get-go. And if the opportunity comes to take him out, and he's looking to Jade and saying, hey, you and me, we're next. if the opportunity comes to take this guy out, we need to do it. Going to be very interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, this opening with, Adam, I just, that really did. You talk about tugging at the heartstrings. Just the one sentence, that opening sentence he has with, it was like, God, I think I'm standing in the ashes of my best friend. You look at just everything this guy has gone through and all the pain and just, when everything started with Blackest Night, when he was on the phone trying to, talk to Carter about, hey, help me out through this, and he goes through the phone lines to find his dead friend there, and now once again he's there amongst the, basically the remains of his friend. That whole sequence there just really was just like, wow. And then you go from there, kind of where it's all dark and shadowy, to them on the beach, and it's still a nighttime sequence, so they keep things subdued. They keep things, down a little bit, but it's just the look on the different people's faces. This has been a great opening of a sequence just to get you back into a whoa kind of moment, because we had a really huge fight sequence going on in the issue before this, and this is just, especially how this goes, and this issue leads into another cool fight sequence, action sequence. This is a great way to start something off without forgoing artistic details, because it's very bright and articulate around the faces, but it still has that same subdued tone to it. I really, this really, cluttered kind of, and I don't want to say cluttered, but just very heavily focused on, there's a lot of different things to look at, and it was just a great, I don't know, I'm running out of proper words to really describe it. I really like this, these opening pages.
The issue is labeled Mars Attacks, and this was really important for me because it takes everything that's been going on with Martian Manhunter in recent years, prior to his death, and brings it to a head. This is a guy who was distancing himself from humanity, reconnecting with his Martian side, and really having kind of an identity crisis. Where do I fit? Do I fit with Earth? Do I fit with Mars? Who am I, and what is my role? And this really redefines him as a hero of Earth, that Earth is his adopted home. Very similar, and this is something that he connects with Superman over many times. But seeing him go through this crisis, in many ways, a lot of what he's going through right now is what Clark was dealing with and has been dealing with in Grounded. To not quite the same extent, though. John's been trying to bring back his people, and he's been manipulated with that. With these visions of, I can bring back Mars, I can bring back my people, and it turns out to be this evil Martian who's manipulating his head. But I was glad to see that he worked past it. He ultimately, his mind, showed that this is a man who, for years, has fought some of the best of telepathic villains. He overcame it, and his rage at being manipulated with his wife and his family being used against him, his hopes for having Mars come back being used against him, the rage that he uses, and the attacks that he uses, actually unleashing the minds of humanity on this person, something that she would never experience before. I thought that was really great, overwhelming her in a way that he probably was at many, many times, where he had to learn how to focus himself so he didn't have to deal with that, but then unleashing that kind of a barrage on her and saying, hey, you want to dance? Let's dance. Here's my ammo. Here's my people coming at you. This is the kind of emotion that I have to deal with all the time with my relationship with humanity, and see how you cope. I love that and I loved how that was drawn. That whole visual attack sequence where he got into her head and unleashed that, and you got to see all of from all the superheroes straight on through to just normal everyday people, to villains that he even pulled through on that, just giving her everything, because there was Solomon Grundy in there was Catwoman in there was Superman, there was Wonder Woman, Batman, Adam, I mean just everybody, and then all the common people. Just very, very cool visual sequence of events, especially to see her shape shifting through all that, unable to hold on to one form because of how much she was being overwhelmed. I thought that was great.
Oh, big time. And again, this is, this issue I don't know what it is about the issue. It really pulled me in artistically. And it's, especially not even just the visual drawings. I got to tell you, coloring schemes, beginning it was very dark. It lightened up with the beaches, but they still kept it subdued. And then we get these Mars sequences where you got to have the heavy reds in the background, but they're not taking away from the individual bright greens, and just the action and the eye blasts, and just this, as I said, a really cool fight sequence. And then you get into that that 2-page spread you're talking about, really psychedelic looking, if you will, about more pastely color kind of deal and lighter, it's kind of like the flow through kind of has me going whoosh, sort of in that mindset. And it was just a really beautiful just piece coming together. I'm giving full props to pencils, inks, colors, everyone on this issue, because this was something that you sit there and I'm really caught into the story, so I want to go on to the next page really fast, but I caught myself I got to slow down and enjoy what I'm seeing here. And like second and third read through, I just sat there and stared and looking and found all the different heroes I can see and looking at the different faces going, wow, they really went all out here with just the multiple wide variety of heroes as well as normal people they wanted to project in this all-out mental assault on her. I was like, wow, that is awesome.
The color work was done by Aspen MLT's Peter Steigerwald and Nathan Eyring, and it's EYRING, so I know I'm probably butchering the last name, and I apologize. But I agree with you totally on the color work. And the importance of this sequence of events, because it shows John, partway through this battle, and it shows his ability to multitask. He's getting this vision of this dark force attacking the Star City forest. The Black Lantern versions that are attacking. What we see with the Black Lantern Firestorm. We see that there's been this black force that the White Lantern was talking about, that this force is going to be destroying the Earth, and it really is about saving the Earth. It's the Earth versus this dark force that's going to destroy it. And for him to see this vision of what looks like a dark version of him almost destroying it that way, because that is a Black Lantern. Is it a Black Lantern Martian Manhunter, or is that a Black Lantern Anti-Monitor? I don't know what that is in that sequence of events, but it's downright creepy looking, whatever that creature is. And I take it actually more like it's probably the Black Lantern Anti-Monitor. I don't know what's going on at the moment as far as that goes. But this sequence, he's recognizing that this is happening, and in the middle of that, he has to make this decision. She can't go to Earth. He can't let her live and be able to take over that planet. So he's making the decision to sacrifice her and himself to save the Earth. What did you think of that decision by him?
I was shocked by it. Because one, just the whole hero code about taking a life, but just to see him, because in a way, you look at him and you're thinking, okay, he is committing murder, but he's also that whole ultimate hero sacrifice, sacrificing themselves to save lives, but he's taking a life at a time. So it was a tough, emotional. I still had a little bit of off. I was a little bit off by it just because he does take a life. But on the other hand, I believe in capital punishment. I believe that you can take a life to save a life. So I understand why he did it. And if I was in his shoes, I would probably do the same deal. So it's not like I'm going to sit there and say, oh, he was terrible, it was wrong of him to do it, because if I was him, I would have done the same thing. But it does always make me wonder when I see the heroes in the comics taking a life, even if it is to save, billions.
He's also out of the jurisdiction of Earth law. She's not a citizen of Earth. This is the last two of the Martians. So it's interesting at that, and he was making the point at that time that if she's left unchecked, look what she did to him. Imagine what she'd do to the people of Earth. It was an interesting decision. Morally, I'm with you. I was uncomfortable with his decision to kill her. Yet I understood it. I'm not saying I justify it. I don't know. I couldn't see myself choosing. I don't know if I could choose the same thing. So I thought it was an interesting choice. And in many ways, it made him feel alien, which isn't such a bad thing.
Because he is from Mars, and it is Martian law that he would hold his standards to. But in this sequencing, he does choose Earth over Mars. Mm-hmm. And he's no longer a hero divided. He is now an Earthling. Even though he was born a Martian, he grew up a Martian, and he's not a Martian anymore. He is choosing Earth as his home. And that's actually how he gets his whole life returned. He is centered and focused on one planet, and this is who he is, mission accomplished kind of deal. So that's where he has his life returned. And that actually is a really cool looking sequence. And I wish that it kind of was his costume, because that is a neat-looking whole with the white emblem, with the emblem on his chest still, but he still's got the green skin, but he's gone a whole new direction on how he looks. It's one of those where I like how this looks.
I wouldn't want to see him in. I like that costume, and I'm a big fan of like the action figures that they're starting to put out with featuring various White Lantern versions of characters. But I don't know that I would want to see that be his permanent costume, because when he Flash swishes back, there's something I like about this being kind of a hybrid of his classic costume that I really enjoy. Regardless of what he's wearing, though, I think it's really pivotal to see in this moment. He's rushing into fire.
Yeah.
To save people. His weakness is what he's rushing into. I will do all that I can to protect you. He's the conviction that he's showing there in that moment, and even further conviction, the realization that he's reading Boston Brand's mind, and he's recognizing that when Boston Brand shows up, that Boston Brand is legitimately not able to stop the White Lantern. He's being truthful. The White Lantern's taking over in that moment, and genuinely believes the sacrifices are going to save the Earth. So he's willing to sacrifice himself for the planet. He's got that much conviction now. This is the first one we've seen willingly sacrifice themselves for the cause of the White Lantern, which I thought was an interesting distinction with John. How at peace he is at this moment. My respect level for this character rose so much in this issue. He felt much more alien to me because of the sacrifice thing that he did, where he killed her and was sacrificing himself to do it. It made him feel more alien. I got to admit, I had a little discomfort there, but yet, for some reason, the second that he rushed off to Earth, it corrected all that for me and made me respect him even more. I think that bit did something, an interesting side effect of making him somehow feel more alien to me in a way that I think he should.
Yeah, big time. And John's a character that, in his death, I got, more behind him. I saw just this, how cool he really was, especially when they did that whole Requiem thing where it was his you saw his final moments when he died, when he just opened up his mind and sent out his story to all those people, and you just see John fighting back, and it was just that cool moment. You're like, man, this guy's a neat guy. I wish I'd read more of him and actually got to know him a little bit. Again, we see that same really cool guy right here where he recognizes, one, what Boston's going through. He's like, hey, relax, dude, calm down. I know it's not you. And I accept this. And he's like, then so be it. And he is, as you said, he's at peace and he is calm with what his role is going to be in the universe. He's making the sacrifice for what he believes is Earth. And it's interesting that we say that in what we said earlier, how the Kronos people were wearing the White Lantern symbols. And that, of course, gets you wondering, hey, is he sacrificing himself for the good? Are the roles reversed and we don't realize it? Is this actually going to be for the good of Earth, or is there going to be something else? And is he going to come back after this? Which I hope he does, because this is a cool hero. I'd like to see him again.
I think they're all dying and they're all coming back. I think they're all, or I don't know if it's even fair to say they're going to die. I don't know what's going to happen to them because of all this. But I think they're all going to wind up on some level coming back. I think what's going to happen is in the Justice League Eclipso arc, we're going to see the same thing happen to Jade. Because that would be the logical conclusion. That story's not done yet. And it seems to me the Eclipso sequence is going to, because Obsidian's involved and Jade, we're going to finally see it come to a head with the two of them and what's happened.
Yeah, I'd like to see that happen, and especially happen to all of the people who came back. All of them get absorbed by the energy, because that would really just cement in my mind that they're all going to come back. They didn't bring them, have these heroes come back just to kill them off. And the interesting thing is when Max Lord had his moment where life was restored, it didn't come for him. It didn't suck his energy into the Earth. So does that mean it only wants the energies of the heroes? Or is there only specific people who can be pulled in?
Except here's the issue. You got to wonder, does life restored necessarily mean that their whole story arc is done? If you follow me. Like, for example, Jade's life's been restored, but maybe she hasn't reached the ultimate conclusion of that path that she got put on because of it. And she's not going to reach that until she and Obsidian finally reach the ending of this arc with Eclipso. Do you follow me?
True.
I think they all have a story that has to play out. So I'm guessing that I think we're going to ultimately see them all return to the Earth. Like Max Lord's ultimate endgame is going to lead to his own loss.
Which could be, at the end of the Generation Lost, we could see Max Lord getting pulled in, and that could be the end of that. And same kind of thing with Captain Boomerang.
I wouldn't care if it didn't happen to everybody, but I guess I'm assuming now, seeing that we're seeing everybody else start to gradually go, that they're all time bombs, heading down a path of destiny that's going to lead them to this. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to me. I'm loving the story. Now, see, this is the issue that makes me wonder: what is the connection of Krona and the White Lantern, and what don't we know here? Because it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Because we see Krona in the beginning, and I'm going to be honest with you. This argument between Krona and Ganthet, I kind of agree with Krona. Which is interesting debate here at the moment. Where did you find yourself falling in the beginning? I'm just talking about.
Well, Krona's that kind of character where you look at the original Guardians and you get really angry with them, where they say, "Oh, we must throw emotions out. We must," no, you can't throw that out. It's part of life. And on one hand, you say yes. There's some things you shouldn't know, but on the other hand, it's this is science. Science is the pursuit of the unknown. How can you take it away from him what he wants to? This is who he is. How can you say that's not who you can be? It's like telling a bird you can't fly. Well, this is who Krona is. He is the pursuit of knowledge. He needs to know what's coming out there. Now, if learning something will cause the end of the universe, guess what? That's something you shouldn't learn, and that's the catch with Krona, because maybe by learning the origin, maybe by learning the very beginning fabrics of time, he will unravel time. And in that case, okay, dude, back off a little bit. There's something, take up a needlepoint or something. Just leave that thing alone, kind of deal. So I don't know, and it's funny because when we talked about the symbols on the chest of the White Lantern, those are the original Guardians. So
yes.
Before they became the Guardians, with willpower, that was their symbol. That was them. That was their life. So, again, it's now got me wondering, what is the White Lantern? Could the White Lantern be their initial essence? And, maybe there's something that we still don't know about the Guardians. That factor that was the Guardians, entity, their life, their being, if you will. Maybe that's what is the White Lantern symbol.
I'm going to be very curious to see who the host is. I've got a theory on who I think the host is going to be now. It's going to be one of the 4 Earth Lanterns, because there's that prophecy at the end of this issue.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine them killing off one of the 4. I'm hoping. Yeah, I know we're both in agreement on that. I'm really hoping that that doesn't happen. So I guess I can't help but wonder now: could one of the 4 of them be the bearer of the White Lantern? And if so, would you like that? And who would you want it to be?
Well, if I actually had to pick somebody to be the White Lantern, it would be John Stewart, because he's got for me, I would say he's got the right mindset, the right discipline, and the right balance of warrior, philosopher, educator, just hard-hitting brute, just to be that kind of person. Now, I don't want to see John Stewart go, because I love him as a Lantern. I love their usage of him. I love when you get a nice, cool story where where you see just the very facets of the man. But I think he could really handle it, and I think he could do a great job as the host, as the guardian of life. And he's the person I would actually put my trust into. As much as Hal and Kyle are cool guys, and Guy is awesome, there's just something about John that has that, that level to him that I'm like, this is the guy I would want protecting and defending all of existence.
I wouldn't want to see Kyle, because I'm really liking the relationship between him and Soranik. And in order for it to be Kyle, I'm guessing that would put an end to that, or make that pretty darn near impossible. While it would be interesting to shake things up there a little bit, I don't know that I would want to see that, because I like them so much. John, I'm with you on your sentiments with John. I don't want to see it be Guy either, because then there's something about Guy being the brash. Now, this is also making the assumption that one of them is going to be the White Lantern, they're not going to die, or something else isn't going to happen to them. Because there could be something else that happens to them. So it's interesting to see that prophecy's been in there. I knew that was part of this whole War of the Lanterns, was we're losing one of the Earth Lanterns on some level. So I wonder what that's going to be. I don't want to see Guy go Red Lantern, for example. That wouldn't be a choice that I'd like to see. I like that he's got it in him but I don't want to see him go that route. So I don't know. I'm curious to see where this all goes. Although that would put him in the Red Lantern book, which would be interesting.
Right.
I don't know. I'm curious to see how this all plays out. It's fun to speculate. I got to admit, I don't really know. So I could see that playing out that way, to a certain extent. The Guardians are evaluating the different lanterns and really talking about how, and we got to question how they even came up with the idea that willpower was the, I guess because that's the way to keep emotions in check, the willpower to keep your emotions in check, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that would be why they did that. So this fundamentally goes against their philosophy that Atrocitus and his group are around. And seeing them analyze it, and of all people, Solek is kind of seeing at this point, wait a minute, we're going too far here. We're overstepping our bounds. We're overstepping our authority at these moments. We're trying to control people. Like Hal Jordan in particular is where Solek kind of goes, why they want him to ambush Hal Jordan. They're using him because they know he'll be able to get close enough to Hal Jordan to ambush him. And what's up with that? That they're trying to take him down? Because Hal, here's the funny part. During this issue, Hal makes repeated references to the fact that he thinks the Guardians might be right about checking the emotions. So philosophically, they're saying he's unstable, but if anything, he's more in their ballpark than he probably ever has been. So what a time to ambush your lantern, when maybe out of all your lanterns right now, he's the guy that might turn out to be the most loyal.
Well, and also, the thing that got me, I was really, you look at what they're doing. Just it's like, well, why don't you send the Alpha Landers? Well, he'll see that as an attack, and he'll prepare for it. You sneak up on him. That, sneaking up, ambush, using his friend that he trusts and maybe will have his guard down, is just, that's, scummy. And that's just not a right thing to do. And it's, Solek's recognizing, hey, Hal's been the guy who's saved our butts multiple times. Yeah, he had the parallax moment. Yeah, he tried to destroy the core. Yeah, he went a little bit over the edge. But in the end, when the chips are down, the guy you go to is Hal Jordan, and they're completely turning on him. They say they're devoid of emotions. Well, they're showing off big-time emotions here with just anger, rage. They're going through the full gambit in, the fact that then they even kind of throw it at Solek saying, hey, we won't have any of your insubordination either, kind of, trying to put a little fear in Solek. Hello, fear, that's your big main enemy. That's the anti of the Green Lantern Corps itself, and they're using fear against Solek. And I'm reading and seeing this, I'm like, there's something wrong with these Guardians. Yeah. I don't know if that's where they're going with it, that the Guardians are corrupted, but it's not imbalanced. They're not right for what they're doing. There's just, I want to really just reach in the comic and just start smacking the little blue guys, because I'm like, hey, get your head out of your butt. You're in the middle of a war here. Focus on the task at hand. Don't start chasing, waterfalls. Stick to the rivers and the lakes that they're used to.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I'm glad you brought in a TLC reference. That's great.
Thank you. That was a tough one.
Yeah.
But seriously.
I wish you hadn't made the choice to tough that one out. That was a TLC kind of deal.
At least I didn't sing it.
Yeah, that's true.
But seriously, though, there is something more to the Guardians. There's something wrong there. They're off kilter. And I think by the end of the War of the Green Lanterns, and as this stuff plays out, we're going to see a little bit more of the corruption that has happened. They're not willing to admit. Because I personally wonder if we're going to get a Green Lantern Corps without any Guardians. If we're finally going to be done with the whole Guardian mindset, and maybe that will be the way that the White Lantern is contained or controlled or whatnot. Maybe it's that all of the the Green Lantern Guardians will say, hey, and they're in the White Battery controlling it, or they're blocking, forming like an energy prism around the White and the Black Lanterns together so the two counteract each other. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I think we're going to get something when everything is said and done. The whole Green Lantern universe is going to be turned upside down, and maybe that's what happens to one of the Earth Green Lanterns. Maybe one of them becomes kind of like a council of Green Lanterns. You figure you'll have one Green Lantern, you'll have an Alpha Lantern, you'll have maybe a Blue Lantern, maybe all the colors will sit on this kind of council, and that's how we're going to get rid of one of the Earth Lanterns.
See, I see that being, though, it's too omnibus for that. It's in the Book of the Black. There will be only 3. I mean, that's in the Book of the Black, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good thing. So I don't know. It's a hidden chapter of the history in the Book of Oa. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know how that's going to play out. But I'm particularly enjoying in the sequence of events, like the Carol and Hal bits. Yeah. And Superman and Hal. Stuff that we saw in the previous issue, where we've got Batman, Superman, Flash, now Carol, all asking the same question. When was the last time you took off the ring? When was the last time and really, it's something we've been asking for quite some time about Cowgirl. Why haven't we seen her? Well, because Hal's been so busy being Green Lantern, he hasn't been Hal. Yeah. And that duality is important because he's always on the job. It's not that when he takes off the ring, he's not the same man. He is. But he doesn't take any downtime. He doesn't take time to smell the roses. And kind of, if anything, we all need to do that and step away from our job for a little bit and step away from situations that could be stressing us and things to kind of look at it with a fresh perspective. Like, I had a situation recently where I was very charged up about it, but if I hadn't stepped away, you had actually told me, it was funny, it was the best advice you could have given me. You said, dude, relax for a little bit, go read Secret Six. And probably, honestly, one of the best pieces of advice you could ever get from a friend was clear your mind, come back with a fresh perspective, which was what, and, for us, that is our, do that. Go read a comic. And it was great advice at the time. But this is the same advice they're giving Hal. They're saying, dude, when was the last time you got a fresh perspective? You took the ring off, stepped back for a bit, and looked at things. Because would he be saying right now, I'm seeing things the Guardian's way? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And what's interesting is they're saying, do you have a fresh perspective right now? Are you seeing things the way you should? Are you so focused on this that maybe you're missing something? And I'm going to be curious to see how Hal comes out of all this, what all happens to him on this. I love that because I do think that that's a danger we all face from time to time. If we don't listen to people, like, thank goodness I listen to you. He's not listening. You know what I mean? I'm in a happy place today because I listened to you. I wouldn't be here right now if I was doing what Hal was doing. And it's an interesting distinction. It's funny I'm connecting with this story in this way. But I'm seeing what Superman and Carol are saying to him. And I love how he's talking to Carol and saying, is it possible for us to go back to being who we were after all this? And Carol's like, I'm going to. But can you? When was the last time you took off the ring? And it's funny how he remembers Superman saying it, but Carol saying it is connected with him even more now, which shows his respect and love for her, that would be something he would acknowledge at that moment. But also that he's longing for that, for them to go back to being the people who they were. Yeah,
it's, I've mentioned a couple of times that I work with a lot of ex-cops, and I worked in the past with active cops, and it's one thing, you got to look about with that mindset and with what they do with, you're dealing with, the scum of the society, and they're dealing with the scum of the universe, and the Green Lantern titles, they have that same thing where you have to have that downtime. Because, recently, I've had a couple of the guys I work with came up to me and said, hey, go home, take some time off. You need to relax. You don't want to burn out, because if you're constantly going and going and going and going, you're going to get burned out, and you're not going to see things the way you should, or you'll miss a detail here, or just the little nuances that you need the concentration and the focus for these type of jobs. And I'm seeing Hal go through burnout with this, where he's just constantly on fire, constantly doing his job, and you just need to sit back for a minute and take a look at the overall what's happening, not focus on the little minutia of what's in front of him right now, and it can end up coming back and really hurting you in the end.
I'm a healthier person because I read comics. It's a hobby for me. It takes me away from whatever's going on at the time, and it makes me a better teacher. It makes me a better husband. These are all things that, because I read comics, it's my time just to kind of step away from all of it and that's part of what you need in life. And you're right. The too often, have I in my life been too much on the go where I forget to do those things? Yeah, absolutely. I think we've all been there before, which I think how we can identify with Hal. Hal is the ultimate human, it's and yet we want to be Hal. He's that guy. You look up to Hal and go, I'd like to be. That Hal seems to have it all together. And even when he deals with his missteps and things like that, or he's a guy. We actually now have accepted the fact that his evil turn as Parallax wasn't his fault. Yeah. And he's now the greatest Green Lantern of all time again. I read all that. I saw what he did. I read 0 Hour. Hal as Green Lantern, he went as far as you could go.
Yeah.
I've accepted the fact that
full-on evil.
Oh, yeah. Yet he had it fully justified in his head. I'm like, I believe that was Hal Jordan at the time. I'm convinced now that, no, that was all bunk, and this guy's Hal Jordan. He's the greatest Green Lantern of all time, and I'm looking up to him again just like I always did. That tells you how well this has all been written and how good a character he is, that you can turn this character back and make us believe it. And it worked. It totally worked because he, I'm ring slinging with Hal. It's like, if I'm choosing one out of the 4, I'm following Hal into a fight. That's me. And that's one of the great things about all this in this story and seeing it. Them fighting, though, and the urgency of these entities, and especially now that there are Coronas in the game, that they need to step up their game against Corona and get these entities back. I love Sinestro. He shows back on the scene, showing us again. This has been something I've really enjoyed in these issues. They're not ignoring the appearances of the characters in other books. The characters are reacting to that. Sinestro's like, I've been off doing, my own personal business. I come back, and to use the old, Earth statement, if you want something done right, do it yourself, because you guys just let all the entities get captured. If I, basically saying if I was here, this would never have happened, which is totally not true. But I love how this is, playing out.
That fits Sinestro. That fits who he is. And again, it was a little nice connection. Even when Carol first came in and she said, hey, they got the We Are Too weakened after the ordeal in Hawkworld. And it has a little editor's note, see, Brightest Day. I'm like, oh, cool. I like seeing that connection. It's, again, the universal, overall feel and the jive that we got going on.
Knock.
Knock. Knock, knock.
I think that was yes. I do like seeing the Book of the Black. I like the idea that there is a lore to the whole Green Lantern universe, and that we get this to see first of all, Krona running around with the willpower energy on his back. I thought that was kind of cool to see him with that early version of what would have been a power ring. Being that I guess that was his power battery on his back, and then the thing on his hand would have been the early prototype for a ring. And seeing him using that in those moments, I thought that seeing that chapter and seeing him running away from the Manhunters, and then his eventual confrontation with the Guardians, I thought was just fantastic, because he's the one that murdered the Sector.
Yeah, and
he reprogrammed the Manhunters, which is something that we never saw before. So Atrocitus being mad at the Guardians, he really should be mad directly at Krona. And how is he going to feel about this revelation now that it wasn't the Guardians themselves, it was Krona reprogramming them that put them in this position? A major secret. Why would they keep that secret?
Yeah, again, why do they do half the stuff they do? That it always, it annoys me with them, but it's and it's probably part of their detachment from emotions, or their attempt to detach from emotion, that they know that this type of information, it would show that they made a mistake. They were flawed. They messed up. They had one of their own do this to them, that they were unable to stop him. I don't know. I think it's probably part of it's better to say that the Manhunters reacted in a different way than they should have, or kind of say that instead of saying one of their own intentionally wanted to destroy an entire sector just to prove his point. And it could be also a way for them to say that, hey, it's really not our fault, when in a weird way it is still their fault. If how they're dealing with Krona, if they had maybe dealt with him a little bit differently, if they'd actually sat down and had an honest and logical discussion with him, and not just go overboard and say, no, you're a criminal, arrest him, lock him up, and throw away the key kind of deal, or actually sit down and embrace you don't have to fully embrace, but you do have to accept that he has a valid opinion. And maybe look for a mutual compromise or something like that, because the Guardians were going our way or the highway. It's 100% us, 0 you, and we're going to stop you by throwing these powerful manhunters at you. And I really dig that sequence when they're firing at him, and he's like, "Let the fear flow, Chrono, and overcome it," which again is how they originally really overcame the Yellow, and how they're able to fight through the Yellow after the whole rebirth thing. So I like seeing that. You talk about the original early version of the Lantern. Well, not only that, just the early version of what is the core and what they can do, and the willpower that it takes to overcome what they're overcome the fear.
Yeah, it's funny how much they've expanded the Green Lantern legacy in these issues, and in this series in particular. And it's something that I always thought was amazingly cool with how deep it was in the past. But they've taken it one step further. And no, not one step, but 20 steps further, I should say. But it was something that always had a rich, expansive, especially because when you're getting into outer space and different races and different species, and the various things that Hal went through, and John Stewart, and throughout the years, to see it now taken to this level, it's amazing to me. Now here's the interesting part. When looking at that image at the end, we see 3 rings and 4 lanterns going for them, and you see Kyle and Guy both going for the 1 ring, which I think that's just totally. There's 4 guys going for 3 rings, but it made me wonder. Guy Gardner, would you be interested in seeing him go back to be Warrior again, or do you want him to stay as a Green Lantern?
As long as we have Guy, I'm happy. So if they went somewhere else with Guy, I probably would be okay with it, just because I think Guy is a cool character and I'm enjoying what I'm getting out of him. And now that I kind of see and get him and understand what he's about, I like him. And if we got to choose between Kyle and Guy, that's gonna be a tough call for me, because for me those two are on even footing. If I had to choose between Hal and Guy or Hal and Kyle, Hal would win out. If I had to choose between John and Kyle and John and Guy, John would win out. But those two are right there, right there on even keel with me, and I'd have a hard time picking which one I would go with to give a ring to, because Kyle's got some really neat stories coming up, but Guy also has the potential for some greatness. That each one, they're not at the end of their rope; they're at the beginning of it. And how do you pick which one and not the other?
Could Hal be taking the ring off? I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, because we've talked about the other ones and kind of made it. We've kind of danced around not danced around. We've blatantly said that we don't think it's going to be Hal. But let's throw that out there. Could Hal be taking the ring off? How would that work? Would you like that?
I actually wouldn't have. I wouldn't have an issue with it. I would wonder why and how, and I would need a full explanation of it. It couldn't just because he wants to pursue a normal life. It would have to be the whole sacrifice of something to do that. There would have to be a bigger picture end game than just becoming Hal Jordan again, because I couldn't see Hal walking away from his duty just to be Hal Jordan again. I want to be a normal person again. I want to have a life. Here, I'm turning in my ring. I couldn't see him doing that. I couldn't see any of them doing it. So
but what if he has no choice, I guess is what I'm saying. What if the choice is out of his hands?
Then I'll be curious to see where he goes with it. Because if they take away the green ring, will he get offered another ring? Hal Jordan Blue Lantern would work. Because you look at Hal, he could have the ability to instill hope, but right now he's not exactly in that place. But there is that inside him. He definitely could do red and yellow. So I don't know. I don't see it happening, but they could still continue on the story with Hal not being a Green Lantern. And they could even tell stories with him in the Green Lantern title without him having a ring. You would see Hal Jordan dealing with the fact that he no longer has a ring. And that could be very interesting, especially depending on who's crafting the story. Because Hal in himself is a great guy, and he does have the heart of a hero, and he wouldn't just lay down and say, well, I'm done now, okay, I'll become, do whatever I do. So he would still want to continue in the community, still want to be a factor of good. So, yeah, you could definitely still do stuff with Hal without a ring.
I'm just curious to see what they're going to do. I don't know. I'm very curious. That's a compelling part. Go ahead.
One little panel that we kind of jumped over that I thought was very fascinating, when they first saw the Book of Black, and the Indigo tribe, I always forget her name. She's like, it's the book. Everyone, retreat. Abin Sur warned me about it. That right there, I'm like, Abin Sur's in name is in their oath. We know there's a connection between Abin Sur and them. Again, another just reference to that. I want to get more of the details. I want to see when he had the reaction and the interaction with the Indigo tribe.
There's so much I want to know about all of the Lantern tribes. That's the funny part was I'm very excited for the Red Lantern book, but there's still that part of me that would love an anthology about all of the other Lantern Corps. Mm-hmm. And that's not a knock on the Red Lantern book. I'm excited about that, but I still want to. There's so much I want to know. An example, a lot of that stuff is great co-feature material, which is kind of sad there's no more co-features, because I'd love to see, as part of the various Green Lantern titles, just kind of that backup of, Blue Lantern Adventure, Indigo Lantern Adventure, just things like that where, it's a story that tells us some new little facet of who they are. I don't know. I could read that forever. There's always more stories I want, though, and I'd rather have that, where there's things where I'm saying, geez, I want to know this, I want to know that, they could tell me this, they could tell me that, than, boy, they're going to run out of stories kind of soon. I mean, it's a great problem to have, that there's a lot of directions they can go in, because there's always room for them to do that. So I echo you. I agree with you. I'm just glad that it's all there, and I don't necessarily need to have all of it. I would love to have it, though, like you said.
Here's something weird I was just thinking of. With Green Lantern, or Green Lantern issue number 63, we're just talking about. But we've had how many previous Green Lantern stories, and I wonder what the current number of how they did with Wonder Woman, how they did with Adventure Comics, what the current number would be if they just ran it through and never ended, never did a reboot.
I don't know, because you're dealing with multiple series.
Yeah.
At that point, and how far back do you go with that? Obviously, you go probably to all of Hal's stories. So go back to the Silver Age, I guess? Or do you count Golden Age stories? I don't know. I guess, do you need Green Lantern to be renumbered? Or would you like that to be renumbered?
For me, no. I like how we have it, but I just don't know. It's just something that just popped in my head, because as we're talking just about how much Green Lantern lore, how much there has been, especially in this, we're going way back to the origins and we're retelling stories, or we're giving a little bit more detail on it. It just did get me thinking about a complete, what would the number, how old, if we tried to trace the bloodline of this character, of this title, how far back would we actually go?
I don't know. It was interesting when they did it with Wonder Woman, because I didn't think I cared with Wonder Woman either. As far as I love the stories, and I didn't think that the whole 600 thing would matter to me. But then when the issue came out, I'm kind of like, well, this is really cool. Yeah. So I say that, and I've put the caveat on it. I don't know if there was an anniversary reason to do that with Green Lantern. I guess I could see them doing it. I don't think it's necessary, but that stuff's always cool. So I don't know if the DC ever had a reason to smack this issue of Green Lantern on it. I wouldn't be against it. I don't feel the excessive need to know. But if they did it and there were enough fans that really wanted it, then I guess the Wonder Woman thing I know came from fans initially asking for it. So I don't know. And with it being such a landmark with 600 issues, I don't think Green Lantern's in that realm. But I'm sure there's a lot, because we're at 63 of this series already, and then we had the whole Kyle series, which started off with Hal.
Yeah.
And then there was the Hal series before that, so I don't know. I just have no idea. And I would assume you'd only count the single solo Green Lantern title in that, so I don't know.
Well, and the other Green Lantern Corps kind of title would go with the renumbering of Green Lantern Corps, because there was a Green Lantern Corps title before, wasn't there?
Well, there were minis too. I see. You get kind of. I think you can go too far with it. I don't think it's. I guess I'm really kind of saying I don't think it's necessary, because I don't want every book in DC that had a relaunch to be renumbered, if that makes sense.
And I'm not saying that either. It just popped in my head, because be honest, I'm looking at the title and I'm looking at the cover, and we're talking about just this, how far back they're going. And it was a thought that popped in my head.
It's like Legion. I don't necessarily need, like Adventure Comics, I appreciated the reason for renumbering that.
Yeah.
But I don't need Legion of Superheroes now to be renumbered to match whatever that series left off at. With that particular continuity.
Agree.
And that could make your head hurt trying to figure out where you would number that with that Legion.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm kind of I'm happy with Green Lantern being numbered how it is. Let's talk some Secret Six.
Oh yeah. Always want to talk Secret Six.
This was a very interesting issue for me. This is actually the one you referenced me to the other day. It's like, go read Secret Six. We see Bane standing, or a demonized Bane, standing over, that's Scandal, right?
Yes.
Okay. And we're finally getting the story of the Get Out of Hell free card. What are we going to do with that one? And she wants to go after Knockout. This is an interesting little dilemma because, first of all, and correct me on this one, have we determined that Knockout's for sure in hell?
No, not really. But you can never really for sure know where anybody is.
Right.
She's assuming Knockout's in hell because, she's
had
done.
dreams and stuff, too.
Yeah.
So I don't... that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm actually curious to find that out, so this is an interesting story. It's always tricky when you get into these sequences of bringing back the dead. Is that the right thing to do? Now you've got a problem where Ragdoll, is he dead and in hell? Did he die there, or is he gone there? What has happened at this moment? Because we do see, and I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I have to ask that immediately because I'm trying to figure out what they have to do with the card. Is it going to be used to bring Ragdoll back? Is it going... I mean, obviously he wants to bring back his old buddy and partner in crime, and I get that. She wants to bring back her lover. Going down there is a very dangerous turn of events. Do they have to bring Merkel back using the card?
Well, here's the deal. Will the card even work? Because that was the card done... that was the Get Out of Hell card free card before the current override, before the current hoopla that happened in Hell and the change of command down there. So who knows even if that thing's going to give you what they want. Now, with Ragdoll, he got gutted, and he was dying, and that's when I think the card pulled him down. So I don't think he died yet, unless it pulled him down at the moment of his death. So that's a whole question there. But I'm thinking that card's not going to pull anybody out of hell, that they're going to have to either figure out their way, fight their way out, or improvise, adapt, and overcome, which is what the Six does best. So this is one of those things where I am just going, oh my God, what's going to happen? And as that's going on, we have these other stuff going on in the title. This issue was, for me, one of those woohoo moments, because and it was one of the reasons I told you make sure you read it, because I do just everything that happened through this. It took me a couple read-throughs to really get a firm grasp on it, and I'm still going, okay, what about this? What about this? Hey, it's all the off-the-page thinking, and Ragdoll is definitely an off-the-page thinking, because you look at him, you think, okay, he died, and that's when the card brought him down, and then he'll present the card and he'll get out. Well, when they get there, when they arrive at Hell, he's not out. He's like, hey, guys, okay, everyone fight, kind of deal, where he turned on them. So did he turn on them to use the card for his buddy, or did he turn on them because the card is no good to them, and he's like, he had to cut a side deal to get out?
This was funny, because it wound up being, this is the first book, as always, I read during the week, and this is the first one I read. When you and I had talked on the phone, I hadn't read any of this week's books yet. I hadn't had a chance. I had, when we usually get our box, I had not had any time to open it up and actually read any of the books yet. So this is a great way to kick off the week, because you get this great opening of the book where they're doing an ad for Secret Six. And I love that during the ad, we've got one of Jeanette's lackeys saying, hey, wait a minute, there's 8 of you.
Yeah.
And I love that, because it's so Secret Six to have that problem with them. But that to me was kind of, they've told you now how they're looking at it. They've got Bane, who's their master strategist, Scandal, leadership and tech expert, Deadshot artillery, Catman expert tracker, Jeanette metahuman defense, Ragdoll infiltration and recon, Black Alice arcane assault, and King Shark biting and chewing. which was great. But I love that each one has their own role. You're talking about the fact that, do you have to worry about superheroes? Do you have to worry about supervillains? Whatever your crisis, we're here for you. We're the team that you need to look for, and here's why. And I got to admit, seeing that video package of them, that looks pretty darn impressive.
For me, one of the lines of the issue was, your enemies are our enemies, and most of our enemies are dead. I love that.
It's so great. Now, we got a hot sauce dude. Now, you got to really have some serious issues that you're dumping hot sauce in your eyes.
My eyes are hurting just watching this.
Yes.
That is, again, showing just how creepy, freaky, and just off the flippin' wall this guy is. He's sitting there, and he's like, oh, yeah, this is a good idea. Let me put a couple drops of hot sauce in my eye. What?
The funny part is he did all this to prepare himself for her.
Yeah.
To take himself to the level where she was worthy of him. He was worthy of her. Or ready to be the kind of man that she needed. But, I mean, how twisted are you that you've got cuffs and the duct tape and all that stuff and the blade ready to go with her? I'm going to be curious to see what Scandal does when she comes back. I hope this girl survives for Scandal to come back. Because I really, here's the funny part, is I love Knockout, and if Knockout comes back due to this, great, because I always loved Knockout, but the new girlfriend, I'm growing attached to, especially after the Bane issue.
Yeah, she is awesome, and it's, again, I really worry about her. When she first made her appearance and she was in the Knockout outfit, I'm like, oh, God, please, this poor girl is about to get gutted. And it went completely the opposite way. And I loved that. I was like, okay, phew. And then every single time they bring her up with, somebody, and I always worry about her. And now this one, big time. The guy... we have a certifiable, completely 100% nut jobby who now has her.
Yes.
And her heart's been broken because her big date that she had for Scandal basically completely forgot about and or was too exhausted just because dealing with the Oolong Island deal. And in a way, I understand her exhaustion, but it's, it is kind of... It's tough to see that. And it's, it's part of the whole relationship type of deal where how much does Scandal understand what a normal relationship is about? If you're too exhausted to go out and say, hey, why don't you come over here, we'll hang, we'll pop some popcorn, we'll watch a movie, instead of saying, hey, honey, I'm too tired. You got to do a little bit of give and take for the relationship and for, that's someone you're special about. But normal people know that. Scandal has not had a normal life.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to correct you on this a little bit.
Okay.
You read the crossover between Secret Six and Doom Patrol, right?
Yeah.
I can understand girl needing a night off.
Hold on. So can I. I understand why she's exhausted. Oolong Island was a tough thing, but you look at just the sequencing, how she's, maybe there could have been something. I don't think Scandal's even thinking... about the girl, thinking about that. She's only thinking about how exhausted I am, how tired I am, and I understand that.
She crashed right away after that phone call. I mean, it's not like she got up and went down and watched some television. Like, I get what you're saying, and I will agree with you in the sense that in a lot of relationships, there's people that do what you're saying, where instead of bending a little bit and inviting the person over and saying, hey, let's find a compromise where we can be together and spend some time. In Scandal's case, she was so exhausted, she crashed after this, which led to the dream about Knockout. I'm actually defending my girl's Scandal on this one a little bit, because she was so exhausted, she collapsed and had this vivid dream about Knockout that drove her so to the point where she attacks Ragdoll. I mean, this is how deep into the dream that she got that I think she's justified here. Now, echoing where you're coming from, I feel heavily emotionally for the girlfriend, because I just said that I'm really digging her and all that, so I agree with you on that. But on this one, I don't feel like Scandal, there was really much more Scandal could have done except say, I promise, tomorrow we'll do this and all that. I've had nights like that where I've come home from work where it's just got to be tomorrow because I'm done. There's been nights where I've come home from work, and you have too. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Those nights where you come home and you just crash, and you're dead. You're done. There's just nothing you can do about it. You're out of it. And this is what Scandal's going through here. So I feel for her. And I wasn't going to Oolong Island and fighting the Doom Patrol. So I was where do you take this as taking place? Because I'm taking this just happened, Doom Patrol.
Yes.
They just got home.
She just got. Oh, I agree completely, and I understand why Scandal passed out. I understand just her whole exhaustion and taking nothing away from her. It's just that whole. I don't know. I think that she could have done a little bit more, and she could, especially seeing her girlfriend's reaction. I don't know. It's. You and me were completely different than Scandal in multiple ways, but especially our resources. Scandal could have very easily sent one of her lackeys over in the car. Hey, go pick her up. Let me take a little nap here while you're going to get her. Drive her back here, or any type of deal, anything that could show beyond just I'm giving you a yeah kind of answer, because that's all this girl has ever had her entire life. She's never had really anybody who treated her the way she should be treated, and Scandal's doing in her mind the exact same thing all the previous exes did to her. Just blow her off whenever they need. Now, Scandal's not actually blowing her off. Scandal has a legitimate excuse that she's exhausted, but in her mind, she doesn't see that. And that's, for me, why I'm like, I want to sit there and say, hey, Scandal, you could have done this, or you could have done this, I want to be her friend and help her out through this little problem so she doesn't, so bad things don't happen to this really cool person.
But I guess in my eyes, I would have more of an issue with her if tomorrow doesn't happen. Now, she's in hell, so tomorrow might not happen. But
she's in hell.
Yeah, so not very good planning. But, I mean, if she doesn't actually follow up on that with her, then I agree with you. And it does sound like from the girlfriend's reaction that this isn't the first time she's forgotten. But that's also got to be an occupational hazard when you're a mercenary. So, I don't know. I mean, this isn't the first time in stories relating to a mercenary lifestyle that we've had this kind of issue. So, I mean, I would, as a friend, going off of what you're saying, make sure to tell her, hey, you promised her tomorrow, you better deliver on tomorrow, or else you could be losing a really good girl here. It also shows, though, that from the dream, that her heart's still not 100% into this girl. Her heart's still with Knockout. Maybe this story arc will provide the closure that she needs to move on to that. I don't know. I'm very curious to see where it's going to go. I find her interesting. I find my heart going out for her on this because I do see a lot of exhaustion there and see, the reason why. But there's an emotional exhaustion that's going on here as well. I wonder if at the end of this arc we're going to get... Scandal's always been a strong character. I wonder if we're going to get an even stronger Scandal out of this arc.
Well, you also look at, what happens here. Scandal, she passes out, she has this dream, she wakes up, and then immediately after she wakes up, she goes right to the car, goes right there, completely forgetting about her girlfriend, completely forgetting about the promises that she made tomorrow we're going to do something. No, it's all about, Knockout. True. It's all about who she says is her true love, her one. So right there, we're seeing she's breaking her promise to her, saying we'll do something tomorrow. She right here is proving that, those were just that she gave her.
Well, and kind of echoing what you're saying, her subconscious in her dreams, because that's not Knockout contacting her, that's her dreams, her subconscious that's telling her that.
Yes. Yeah, that's just pure her mind. I don't think, Knockout has had any communication back to her.
You're leaving me here to dally with mortals. That's her mind telling her that she's feeling guilty for moving on with this girlfriend, which that guilt's a very real emotion.
Oh, yeah.
The survivor's guilt. It's, girlfriend's dead, she's still alive. That's going to be part of, with her being immortal, that's going to be a hard thing for her to deal with. Because we know that is she as long-lived as Vandal Savage? In the sense that she's going to be immortal and live forever? Or is it just that she's more resistant to it?
I don't know. I always took it that she wasn't immortal like Vandal, but she was long-living.
Because, we've seen her get to the point where she was almost completely gutted, and she lived. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens with her and what, her actual ability is to live. Her fight with Ragdoll was pretty impressive. I love that Ragdoll has a bunch of little monkeys dressed up like his friends.
Yeah.
Like, who wouldn't? That's really funny.
He's got the full 6 in Monkey's costume. That just is Ragdoll. Again, it's the goofiness of Ragdoll, but later on, we see beyond just the lunacy, just beyond the humor side of Ragdoll. We see the nasty, evil man that is Ragdoll, and I love seeing that turn.
Yes, well, it makes him a lot like his sister, Junior. You know, in those moments, we see the like right there. I don't see him there. I see what we saw in her.
Yeah.
Which is pretty interesting at that moment, to see that he has the same side that she does. He's not always this lovable, cartoony character. But I think part of the exhaustion from Scandal, I think part of the reason why I felt with her, just how exhausted she is both physically and emotionally, I don't think she would have stabbed him if she'd been in her full game. I think she realizes in that moment that was a mistake, that wasn't something she would have normally done. You know, to get the card back, I think she would have reacted differently. She's not her normal self during that moment. I think we might see her snap back into that during this. But, and I love how we're talking about this big in-depth moment with Ragdoll, but while this is going on, there's that whole storyline with the girlfriend being kidnapped that's going on. We're building something else, which I'm guessing is the arc following this, right?
Or during it. I'm thinking, because the guy... Creepy Tabasco guy is saying he's going to deprogram her. So it's not just going to be murder. It's going to be torture. It's going to be the whole brainwashing kind of deal. So when they're in hell and they're dealing with that, I think we're going to get snippets of what the girlfriend's going through. And then once everything's said and done, it'll be the finalization of what happened to her and the future of her in this series.
I got a question for you. Do you think I'm going to have to choose which girlfriend I have to save from hell? Is it going to be that kind of deal?
Oh, boy. Oh, man, I hope not, because that'll be a heartbreaker. Because who do you go with?
Looking at the timing of this, that is a possibility that's on the table, because Tabasco Eyes, he's a little off his rocker.
Yeah. Tabasco Kid may have a bit of problems, and I can see if he isn't able to break her, he says, well, if I can't have you, no one will. And, slit the throat kind of ending to their little romance, and that's not going to be a good thing for her.
He's from Vermont, a place for lovers.
Well, it is. Vermont's a good state.
I'm glad he's got a refill of Tabasco right by his radio, just in case.
Well, you know what? Every so often you got to do another drop, just to keep the pain, the anger, and the psychoticness, flowing. No,
see, I take it like this: your eyes get dried out in this weather. All that, the furnace going on in your car and that type of thing, and in your house, it's unless you've got a really good dehumidifier going, your eyes are going to get dried out, and that's bad when you're on the road. You want to have nice, clear, bright red vision when you're driving.
Now, he is driving with sunglasses at night, so does that make him cool?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Especially if you got Tabasco in your eyes. Yeah. Or he's feeling hot.
Wears his sunglasses at night so he can see.
Yeah. Too funny.
The thing I liked was once everything, all the craziness happens. Once Ragdoll disappears with his hand on the card. It's Black Alice because we saw her deal with the Rain in Hell mini arc. She knows what happened. She's filling in her team and she's telling them, but she's like, I'm not going back there. There's no way I'm going back. I'm still affected by that. Not going to happen. And it was, I like seeing that in her because, you know what? She dealt with some nasty, nasty stuff down there, and she got off light by comparison to everybody else. Just being in hell was tormenting on her. Just what she went, what little she went through, down there was nasty. And she's like, I'm never going back there until I have to face the consequences. And it's interesting seeing her accept the fact that maybe she's probably going to go down there when she dies. But I liked seeing that. I liked the fact that she was their tour guide on the initial opening.
Do you see the possibility of her actually going down? Like that she might decide to go down after the team after all, even though she said no?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. The cavalry arriving at the last minute kind of backup deal. Maybe she can get some friends of hers that who have more dealings with Hell to show up. There's a lot of the various magic users, whether that would handle those kind of adventures and or problems, and I don't know. There's so much they could do with that, but on one hand, I do see just the resolve in her eye that I'm never going back there again. So if she doesn't show up, I wouldn't be surprised.
I like the whole bit with Catman, because we saw Catman go through a very tough few issues where there was a real question as far as whether Catman was going to end up staying with the team, whether he's going to be able to. Was he going to stay in Scarteras? I was worried that he was going to stay in Scarteras, that we weren't going to get him back. And to see him now more confident, more back into his role, I'll do it. With the hand thing. I thought that was great. I'm like, okay, Catman's back in the game. He's back. I mean, when he's standing in that elevator at that moment. Now, you tell your masters that we're coming to take back one of our own. Tell them we know they're going to try and stop us. And mister, tell them we don't give a damn. I'm like, whoa, what? What a great line.
Smack talking to a demon is tough, especially when you're about to go down the elevator into hell. That is, again, that is the coolness that is Catman. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. Now, how priceless was it that the Gateway is in some suburban, mall in the middle of, it was Iowa, right?
Yep.
Yeah, a suburban mall in the middle of Iowa.
Because of your love for Iowa?
Yeah, I know. I was just like, I'm like, that's perfect. See, now I see why I have to destroy Iowa. It's the gateway to hell. We have to save all of humanity. So my destroying the state is a good thing.
I like with Deadshot. I take it back. It kind of makes sense. Now, at the end, we see Ragdoll. I'm going to go back to what I said in the beginning. Do you think he's dead or alive there? Do you think he's alive still?
He's
with the barbed wire
up
on his arms and stuff?
You look at him, he's bandaged up. I think he's alive.
Okay.
I think he cut a deal.
Because he knew that his friends would be coming?
Yeah. It's, you think about it. As I said, that card wasn't created, by the current ruler of hell. So she's not going to honor what the previous guy did, but she may say, hey, here's a deal for you. Your friends are going to come down here to rescue you. You double-cross them, I will give you your friend back. And would Ragdoll be willing to do that? Or is Ragdoll trying to play hell to get both Parademon and Knockout back? Who knows what the end game in Ragdoll's head is, but initially I'm thinking he's double-crossing them. But anytime we see in Secret Six when one of the member of the team is double-crossing the rest, it's usually to save them, so who knows where this is going to play out? Because we did get to see a really darker side of Ragdoll before. And it was cool because he had those moments where he's sitting there talking to her and kind of trash-talking her in a way, saying, you keep saying this is your one, but how long did you really know her? And how long did you wait? Now you've picked up another little cutie on the side, and that's, who you're with. He kind of threw it back at, Scandal's face, and maybe even that antagonized her a little bit more and what got him gutted.
Can they get back together after this? With him?
Who knows? That's, maybe this is a way you get rid of Knockdown from the Secret 8 down to Secret 7. Unfortunately, I'd hate to lose Ragdoll because he's a fun character. Can you figure this out? Can you work through this? Or was this all a giant idea on Ragdoll's part to get both of them? I'm still holding on to the fact that maybe he thought this through. Maybe he thought of a way that he could trick, pull a deal on the devil and get both of them out for one. I don't know. I don't know it's hard to figure out Ragdoll, to figure out his mindset, where he's going to go with stuff at times, because he is so out there. But in the end, maybe the Secret Six will win on it in the end. Maybe they'll get, what they all want. And if that happens, what happens to the current girlfriend? Because as we both said multiple times, we really like her, and we like seeing Scandal with her, and I'd like to see her survive.
I wonder if both could connect then over their own losses, though. Maybe this is the chance for the two of them to finally let go and maybe connect over that, where they both realize their obsessions ultimately are what put them at odds. And this is why neither of them should have kept the card to begin with. They should have given it up. So I don't know. It's an interesting story because it gets very deep. Because who wouldn't take that card if they thought that someone they loved was in that possession? You're in a position to bring them back to save their soul. And that would be attractive. It would also be corrupting, though. And we're going to see that moment with people who aren't afraid to be corrupted. So I'm very curious to see where this storyline goes. Great issue.
Amen.
Great molecules! They're programming the computers for a chain reaction to blow up that atomic pile!
I want to remind everyone of some of the cool ways to participate in the show outside of the podcast if you want to check it out. We have a forum, and in that great forum community, every week I post the episodes up there along with a comment thread. So it's a great way for you to give us some comments on the episodes, your thoughts on some of the discussion points that we have on the show. Do you agree, disagree with us? What are your thoughts? Are there books that you wish we'd be talking about that we aren't? Please feel free to post your comments in those threads. I do read all of them, and I try to go back and respond individually to each one that's on that thread, especially the episode ones. So, like, for example, there's going to be one up for episode 246, and I'll try to respond to each person on that thread personally. So please make sure to check there. I tend to go to the forum first. We also have a Facebook page, which is very active. It's a Raging Bullets Facebook page. Also, there's links on there to Jim's and my personal pages, but there's a great show community that participates on Facebook, so feel free to go to ragingbullets.com. Click on those. It's in the About Us section. You can get a direct link to those. We have a show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. They always get the first priority for me as far as putting them on the show because we're an audio medium. So if you have any comments that you want to make sure get on the episode, feel free to call into that line. Whether you're a regular participant in the show or not, doesn't matter. I always air all of the voicemails. So if you're wanting to get something on the show you want us to talk about or get your thoughts on there, please feel free to use the voicemail line anytime you want. I do want to give a quick shout out to an email from Don Swanson. Don's from Connecticut, and he was the one who actually let me know at first about Dwayne McDuffie's passing. Don also wanted to let us know that there's a lot of listeners like him and that any feedback, good or bad, is appreciated, and he said that he should do it more often to show that the people out there are listening. And actually I want to pause in Don's email real quick and just say, I'm very well aware that there's a ton of the listening audience who just like to listen to the podcast, and they're thrilled doing that, and that's what it is. They like to listen, and that's great. There's a lot of podcasts I listen to, especially with running a podcast, where I don't have the time to send them emails and participate in the show outside of just listening and enjoying the product that they put out there. So my first thing is, any of you out there that listen, whether you participate in forums or not, have ever sent us an email, I appreciate your time listening to the show. Even if you just listen to segments here or there, episodes here and there, we really appreciate you guys. And any capacity that you are involved in Raging Bullets that includes listening is something that is just tremendous to us, and thank you. We're very flattered that you give us some of your time. He says, a little about me. I remember my first comic, which was Superboy and the Legion of the Superheroes 201 in 1974. I was 7, and I was sold. Superman was my number 1 and still is, and Legion my number 2. Always been a DC guy. Collected until I just got out of high school. Stopped reading until 5 years later when the whole death of Superman was going on. Stopped again, picked up an issue here and there up until I started listening to your podcast. I just wanted to know what was going on in the DCU, and you guys sucked me back in. I like to say I'm mad about that, but the stories are so good. Since listening to you guys, I've gone back and filled my run in Action Comics, and right now I've got issues 240 from 1958 up to the current 897. I'm just baffled by that. It's an amazing collection. Been working on issues 200 to 240, but it's getting a little bit too pricey. I haven't listened to the last 2 episodes due to only getting my books once a month. I work third shift during the winter, and listening to your shows makes the shifts go by so much faster. If I had a question for you guys, I know you touched a bit on this, but it really bugs me on DC's usage of Superman. Seems like no one knows what to do with him. What do you guys really think? He hasn't been in Action Comics in 2 years, and that really bugs me. He's grounded in Superman. I like the story in Superman, but I question a lot of his dialogue, telling Lois to kill the story. I get it. Superman wouldn't do this, though. But I'll wait to see how it plays out. In the War of the Superman, we were promised a story that shows why Superman is so great, and he is, but just for a few small parts they dropped the ball. I know they say this is the year of the Flash and the Green Lantern, but I want my Superman back. One other question. What do you guys hope to see in the next Superman movie? Other than the Smallville cast, do you think it needs to be another origin story? I hope not. Sorry I've been rambling a bit. I'm not a writer. But I know you wonder about listeners' histories with comics. Keep up the great work. Look forward to your Smallville episode 2. Hope you do a deep review of the finale. Your friend, Don from Connecticut. P.S. Tell Jim to stop singing. You know, Don, first of all, thanks for all the comments. And like I said, I do recognize that just there's a great portion of a listening audience. And that's true, I think, of any medium. I think it's true of comics. I don't think every reader of comics goes to forums, the DC forums, our forums, any forums, and posts about comics. They're just content to read and enjoy their comics, and then that's their role as a comic book reader, just to enjoy that. And I think that's true of podcasting, that's true of film, that's true of television. It really is. Most of us are just viewers and listeners and enjoyers of the various mediums. To touch on some of your questions, we have talked about a lot of this on the show. Grounded and Superman, I think we are seeing right now, and I don't want to spoil this for you because I'm not sure where you're at, because you've mentioned you're getting your books once a month. Some of the most recent issues of Superman have started to allude to what's going on with him, and a lot of what you're feeling about how he's acting seems to be very true, on purpose. And there's something going on with him that I think we're going to see play out that I'm hoping leads him in the direction that you're talking about. I also know that after this Lex Luthor story is done in Action Comics, he will be back in that book as well. So it's a matter of time before you're getting what you want. And, it's one of those characters. I love Superman. I'm with you. A lot of times on the show I'll say I'm a Batman guy, but I am thrilled with Superman. He's a guy that I am really, attached to as well since my childhood, the Christopher Reeve films, and going back to actually reruns of The Adventures of Superman on television, the Super Friends cartoon, and then Superman's various cartoon appearances, plus in comics and Justice League, and just various different places with this character. I have a huge history, a rich history with Superman. I love the character. And I'm with you. I'm always willing to see more Superman. I always want to see more Superman, and his appearances are always great. I think after Grounded, we're going to see exactly what you're hoping for. I think it's something we all want to see, too. I'm enjoying Grounded a great deal, though. And I do think that there's going to be this payoff that you're talking about. I have similar feelings about Wonder Woman in the sense that I feel like Wonder Woman's story, I have to see the ending before I can really judge it. And I think Grounded is going to be the same way. Although I think now we are seeing in Grounded exactly some of the answers that you were looking for as far as what the deal is with him and what's going on. Now, as far as the movie goes, this is something that I think we addressed a bit as we've been talking about it over the episodes that we have. I want to see some form of origin because I think it's good for people who maybe are being introduced to the character for the first time or revisiting him. I don't want that to be the main focus of the film, though. I think that there's been some great ways that films have kind of done like quick little montages that have kind of told the basic story, but I don't think that needs to be the main focus of the Superman film this time around. I think quickly going through it, or fitting it somewhere in flashbacks during the film. I think there's creative ways that the writers and directors can fit those origin moments into the story without making it a pivotal focus. Would I care if it was an origin story again? I don't know. It all depends on what they do. Are they going to do something different with it? If they can do it in a different way where it still gives us a kick-butt Superman story, then I'll be fine with that. I just don't want to see a rehash of Superman the movie, if that makes sense. A movie that I love and adore, but I don't know that I need to see necessarily another full-blown origin. So we'll see. I don't know. That's one of those things where I'm on the fence right now with what I want to see out of the film. The casting right now has me super excited, and I'm going to be curious to see what they wind up doing with it. But I don't know that we need a full-blown origin, except if they're starting a new continuity with it. Maybe they feel that they'll need to in order to start this up to be a multi-film thing. Because before Batman Begins, if someone had said to me, do you need another Batman origin, I would have said no. But that was the whole focus of Batman Begins, and I loved it. So, it's like, how many times have I seen Batman's origin told? Well, okay, it worked in Batman Begins. So can they sell me again on it in Superman? They could. It all depends on what that film's like. So I've got to wait and see. So I say that, but I do want to put a caution on myself on that maybe if they're doing a new continuity with it and it's going to be a multi-film type of thing, they can make it work for me again. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Thanks again for the email, though. I want to remind everyone that our email address is ragingbullets@gmail.com. While I do give preference to voicemails, I do read all the emails that are sent into the show. And a lot of times if you've got a quick comment that you want to just shout out there, just let us know. Just understand that I don't necessarily air all of the emails on the podcasts. You know, from time to time I'll grab a couple and throw them on the show just because we have a little bit of time to do something like this. And I do like listener content on the episodes as much as possible. So if we don't have voicemails, then I will jump to some emails and throw a few on the show, just to get some listener commentary on there, because I do want this to feel like a community podcast. So anytime you have comments on the show, please send them in to us, and we're always glad to hear them. This is funny, Jim. I was going to save this for the end of the show, but I think this is an appropriate placement for this in our commentary, because you're doing this exactly what I didn't want you to do. And we got an email from a listener named Chris. And he was really trying to be helpful. He was addressing the fact that you've all of a sudden, which I didn't even realize you were doing it, now I am catching it, from around episode 244 or somewhere around there, you started adopting saying kind of deal. In the history of the show, for anyone who's a longtime listener, you're laughing about this because if you go back to episode 1, I said slick all the time, Jim said whatnot all the time. There was a lot of I like the fact that's and things like that happened on the show. And many of those things like slick, I can't tell you the last time I've said slick in the last 3 years maybe. These things fade from time to time. Kind of deal is one of those examples where you're all of a sudden saying it. The problem with Chris was trying to be helpful and saying that it would improve the show if, Jim could curb saying that, because he's saying it a lot. The problem with that is you're focusing Jim on the fact that he's saying kind of deal, and he's not thinking about talking about the comic book heroes and the questions that are being asked. He's thinking about apologizing for saying kind of deal, which doesn't make for good podcasting. We actually had one point in the first segment on the show where you actually stopped yourself and said, "Oh, I just caught myself saying that. I'm sorry." We don't want to hear that on the podcast, and that's where I disagree with Chris. I know he was coming from a standpoint of saying, "Hey, I'm just trying to help out the show," and that type of thing. I don't want you concentrating on little quirks in what you might be saying. I want you concentrating on content on the show. And I think that's ultimately people are going to kind of go, "Okay, that's a little silly," and we can laugh at it. But I don't want you to be sitting and stumbling through the whole episode going, "Oh my gosh, I said kind of deal again," and all that. I don't think that makes for good podcasting. I think people throughout the show, and you should laugh at my various quirks and Jim's various quirks. That's part of who we are. Like you would any friends. And we poke fun at each other throughout the entire episode every time we record because of our own little quirks. Kind of deal, which I don't know where this came from with you. I don't know where you had, because you didn't even realize you were saying it. That's how funny that was, and I didn't either. Now that it was brought to our attention by Chris, I totally catch you every time you say it. But that's so funny. You got to laugh at that. We all have our quirks and things to laugh at. It's actually at the end of the show, one of the basis of some of our next contest is going to be these kind of little quirks that we have, and we've had for 5 years, and not just you, me. It's something that I figure after 5 years of the podcast, let's have some fun, and I'll explain more about the contest at the end. But Chris was totally coming at it from the standpoint of he was trying to be helpful. He talked about the fact that he'd been associated with Toastmasters for some time, and was trying to help out the show. And the problem with it, just to address honestly what Chris was trying to say, if you're sitting there concentrating during a 2-hour episode on whether or not you're saying kind of deal, you're not concentrating on the Teen Titans. You're not concentrating on Detective Comics. You're not concentrating on Smallville. I want you to concentrate on, Secret Six and what we're talking about with these discussions, not that. So that's the honest answer as far as why I don't want you to be worrying about that right now, because I don't want you apologizing for it or stopping yourself and losing your thought, which happened twice when we were recording today because of it. So ignore it, just go on, and it'll disappear and vanish like everything else does that we've both done quirky-wise on the show. Whatnot was one of those things that you became the sensei of Whatnot because in the early episodes of the show, you said it excessively. It was actually what kind of deal is now was Whatnot back then. You throw it in now as kind of your own terminology, but you don't throw it in as a verbal cue like you did in the past. Or maybe you might do it occasionally, but it's extremely rare now. It used to be for you, though, an extreme verbal cue early on in the beginning of the show, which led to the whole joke that you're the sensei of the whatnot. That's where it all came from, for those people who are maybe listening to more recent episodes and don't know where it actually came from. So kind of deal is today's whatnot. It really is. And don't be self-conscious about it. Just what it is. I know Chris was coming at it from a standpoint of helping, but you've got to... you just got to understand that we're human and we have our own quirks, and that's going to be one of those things. And kind of deal will kind of disappear eventually. Just well,
hopefully
people will remember this as being the kind of deal era. Just like I had the slick era early on at the beginning of the show, and many others along the way. Now, this one's actually, I got a message from friend of the show, Ryan Edmonds, who's Deadpool from the forums. Melbourne has a new comic book shop. It's called All Star Comics. And owners Mitch and Troy have over 10 years of experience working in comic book retail. Together, their aim is to make All-Star Comics a unique and friendly shopping experience in the heart of Melbourne's comic book district. The address is Level 1, 410 Lonsdale Street, Melbourne, Australia, 3000. They're also trying to build a community on Facebook of just people to kind of share and chat about comics and things like that. Go to the Facebook and search for All-Star Comics Melbourne, and you can kind of connect with their Facebook page. So whether you're going to be in Australia or not, join into their community and start chatting comics with them. But that's All-Star Comics. And if you're in Australia, certainly stop by and let us know if you have a chance to pop by the shop. But I think that's kind of cool. I'm jealous. I'd love to go to a comic shop in Australia. At some point in time, that's a trip I want to make, to go to Australia, because we've got so many friends of the show who we've made who are from Australia that I would love to go there and visit Australia. But thanks, Ryan, for letting us know about that. And Jim, why don't we go ahead and jump back into the podcast then?
A scarlet costume ejects from his ring, and in a blur of motion, police scientist Barry Allen becomes the Flash.
Jim, talking about show contests, we're celebrating 5 years of Raging Bullets. And in March, I'd like people to have some fun with the show. In honor of 5 years, we're having a contest. Your job: create poems, songs, banners, parodies, Photoshop pictures, celebrating or even poking fun at some of the fun various happenings during 5 years of Raging Bullets from either of us. You guys as listeners catch things that we aren't always aware of. And kind of celebrate what you've loved about the show, things that you've laughed at with the show, whatever. And send them in. We're going to pick our favorite entries. We're going to pick our top 3 winners. And what we're looking for is just creativity. Have some fun with this. Celebrate 5 years of Raging Bullets. The due date is we'll make it March 31st, the last day of the month, so that way you got a chance for the full month to kind of come up with some creative ideas on how to celebrate the show. You're welcome to take clips from old episodes. You're welcome to take pictures that we've got on the website. And remember, there is a link on ragingbullets.com also to our old site. So you're welcome to look at that too and pull things from that. Anything you'd wanted to parody us. If you're an artist and you want to illustrate something, a parody of the show or whatever, it can be a parody, it can be something serious, whatever you want to do creatively about Raging Bullets. We'll be putting any of the postings on the website. Anything that we can air, we'll air on the show as we get them in, just to kind of celebrate 5 years of Raging Bullets. You guys are such an important part of what we do that we'd love anything that you would love to. So get creative. The entries are pretty open-ended, but I gave you some ideas on ones. Like I said, poems, songs, banners, parodies, Photoshop pictures, really celebrating the show. If you want to make a banner celebrating 5 years of Raging Bullets that people can link to on their websites or, put on their signatures or something like that. Hey, Raging Bullets, 5 years of podcasting or something like that. We're looking for just creative entries celebrating 5 years of Raging Bullets. Joke around, have fun. We'll pick the most creative, top 3 creative ideas will be our winners. So it's kind of cool. I'm excited for this. Want to remind everyone to check out show sponsors, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. DCBService.com is your pre-order source. They have Gotham City Sirens number 23, regularly $2.99, only $1.79. Great chance to pick that pre-order up at a great discount. Over at InStockTrades.com, they have all the trades and hardcovers you're looking for, including Gotham City Sirens, Song of the Sirens hardcover. Regularly $19.99, 38% off, only $12.39. And I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support the show. Our next episode, Jim, we are going to be chatting more comics. I'm having a lot of fun doing this, so it's going to be all comics, because obviously Smallville is on a little hiatus right now, so you and I are going to chat all comics next week. There's a lot of books that I wanted to get to this week that we didn't have a chance to, so I'd like to continue this kind of exploration of some of the recent comics. And we will see everyone next week.
Bye!
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanon Guard or Egyptian, working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up.